What up, though, One Pride? This is the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, the podcast where One Pride goes worldwide. My name is Anthony Fitzpatrick. I'm joined this evening by Ryan McCluskey, which means one thing: it is time for the college football podcast, Deuces Wild. Ryan, this is the second part of our CUSA preview. We started season 4 last week. We're already in full flow. How have you been this past week? Everything good with you?
Yep, good. Yeah, just prepping for my trip. Just finishing up work. Yeah, uh, all good. Like you say, I've been watching a lot of CFL. That's back. That's in week 2, and the end of the inaugural UFL as well. So football is long started for me already.
That's it. This never ends. When the spring leagues are in there, summer leagues are going. I need to watch myself a bit more CFL there. And as mentioned, you're on a trip. You're on your way to Japan soon, I believe. That's gonna be fun. Shame you'll not be there to see some X League while it's on. That'd be quite a unique opportunity.
Yeah, they've got a lot of American players in the X League. A lot of them have actually just moved there. And it's quite a large American population that live in Japan. So it would be a shame, let's say, go to their games because I'm pretty sure maybe watchers, I'd say outside of think Canada and America, it may be the most supported league in the world. They have got absolutely tens of thousands of fans and some very famous teams. The
Yeah,
Powerball is probably like, I think it runs into like the early 1900s or the middle of the decade century anyway.
yeah, and you sort of see some more of these Japanese players they come across for like the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Bowl. I think it's the Shrine Bowl that has Japanese players over now, but you sort of see more of them.
Yeah,
So, but
there's a lot
yeah,
of them in the CFL as well. There's quite a few Japanese players there as well now.
if anyone's been sort of Tokyo in, if you've got any recommendations for Rye while he's there, hit him up. He'll be, I'm sure he'll be up for trying anything. But we have a show to get on with today, and as mentioned, we are in our Group of Five conference preview phase right now. We started the CUSA last week. We covered first 5 teams. So last week we had a look at Florida International, Jacksonville State, Kennesaw State, Liberty, and Louisiana Tech. And this week, we're going to take a look at Middle Tennessee, New Mexico State, Sam Houston, the University of Texas, El Paso, and Western Kentucky to finish off our comprehensive preview of the CUSA. Just quickly before we do, just going to get all the housekeeping stuff out the way. So don't forget, Rural Alliance UK Discord. If you want in, let us know. We will file you a link across. Main podcast. If you've not seen it already this week, go check it out. We did a show on cab battles, end of OTAs, and we also had a little bit of fun creating some NFL five-a-side teams as well in tribute to the fact that the Euros are going on currently over here. So yeah, go check that out if you haven't already. Don't forget to like and sub to everything, Twitch, YouTube, all that good stuff. Don't forget to subscribe to Lions Nation Unite. That is Herman Moore's pet project to bring together the best in YouTube creators from Lions fandom. And it's going to be expanding a little soon. A lot of us content creators are going to be doing some more work for them there. So you want to get in on the action before that blows up. And don't forget, we're a Twitch affiliate. We're monetized on YouTube. We've got a tip jar. So if you want to help us that way, great. But we just love having you all in the building. We've got a feedback form. So any suggestions, anything you want us to do, anything like that, you can fill that in as well. Right. We got all the housekeeping out the way. So let's just get straight onto it. So we're going to go back into a CUSA preview for 2024. So as mentioned last week, if you've not watched it already, go back, check it out. We talked about Florida International, Jacksonville State, Kennesaw State, Liberty, and Louisiana Tech. So we're going to move it on into the second half of the conference, and we're going to start off with the Middle Tennessee Blue Raiders, established 1911. They play at the Johnny Red Floyd Stadium in Murfreesboro in Tennessee. Rivalries for the team. They've got 2 major rivalries. So you have the battle for the Palladium against the Troy Trojans. The teams fight over a 3-foot basewood statue of the Greek goddess Athena. There's a whole historical thing that goes back. I think if you check the 2023 preview we did, I went through it all on there, but it is good stuff. The rivalry is on hold till 20 33 though, so nearly a decade till we get the next one of that. And then they've got the far more active 100 miles of hate rivalry with Western Kentucky, named so as there's about 100 miles distance between the teams and they don't like each other. So very aptly named there. Western Kentucky have beaten them 8 out of the last 9 years. So a bit of a one-way thing there at the moment. In terms of Middle Tennessee's recent records, 2022, their record was 8-5, and they went 4-4 in the CUSA. Last year, though, they took a step back. They went down to 4-8, so halved their win total. But they were 3-5 in the CUSA, so they only lost one game less more than the season before. However, that was not enough for Rick Stockstill to be able to keep his job. He was the 4th longest serving head coach in all of the FBS. He'd been there about 17 seasons, I believe. And like, make no mistake, he did a very good job with the Blue Raiders. He turned them into a very respectable outfit. But we talked about this last year about this team. They have been stale for a long time. They've not been competitive in the CUSA for half a decade and taking a regressive step back last year when you've got newbies coming up from the FCS and you've got independents coming in from the outside and you still can't challenge towards the top. That was enough. Rick Stockstill is gone. So for the first time in nearly 2 decades, they're rolling out a new head coach. That is Derek Mason. He is 54 years old, coming into his debut season with the Blue Raiders. He is a defensive coach. He is vastly experienced. His big break came in 2010. He was DB's coach on the Stanford Cardinals team, which had Jim Harbaugh as its head coach, David Shaw and Vic Fangio as its coordinators, and had players like Richard Sherman on the team. He moved up to defensive coordinator when Fangio left for the NFL. He got his break into head coaching territory when Vanderbilt hired him in 2014. He was there for 6 years. He went 27-55, which is not great, but it's Vandy. It's incredibly hard to win there in the SEC. And overall, it was thought he did a decent job in the circumstances. Since getting fired in 2020, though, he's been a DC at Auburn and Oklahoma State before he spent actually 2023 as a color commentator for the SEC network. Vandy's only 40 miles away from Murfreesboro, so he's very well tapped into local recruitment scene, generally recruits very well, but this is a Middle Tennessee team that has been hit very hard by the portal. There's a lot of building to do, but Ryan, we talked about it last year. This is a team that had gone really stale, and in Mason now he's got the chance to prove himself after that Vandy stint.
Yeah, this is a team that we've, like you mentioned, teams now, like say, nipping at their heels, coming up from the FCS. NTSU are very much being caught up. Like say, they're losing ground on the ones above them, and the teams below them. I suppose the small fish in the big pond are starting to make waves and catch up with them. So he had to go really after what was a pretty dismal year, even if it wasn't that bad in conference. It's yeah, as you mentioned, things would do just set in their ways and 17 seasons. Usually I'd say that's too long for any head coach. You've probably got a lot of bad habits, a lot of things that you just don't want to fix or don't know how to fix here. And they've got with someone vastly experienced, like I say, at the pros, at this level, has lots of connections, knows lots of the kids around in that area. So yeah, he's definitely got a job on his hands, but it wouldn't be wise to go with an inexperienced hire, not when they're kind of treading water right now.
No, like I say, you got someone who's very well tapped into the local recruitment scene. That always helps, and hopefully be able to use that to his advantage. In terms of the draft details for Middle Tennessee, they didn't have anyone drafted in 2024. Not actually had a player drafted since 2018. That was the wide receiver Richie James, who went to the 49ers. The last time the Lions drafted someone from Middle Tennessee was in 1958. That was the offensive tackle Joe Bruce, and we took him at pick number 313 back when there were a lot more rounds in the NFL draft at the time. So in terms of 2023, how did they do? The results. So they had a rotten non-con. They were away at Alabama. They lost 56-7. They were away at Missouri. They only lost 23-19 against that really good Mizzou team. They beat Murray State at home. They lost to Colorado State at home 31-23. Then they lost away at Western Kentucky 31-10. At home to Jacksonville State 45-30. They beat Louisiana Tech 31-23, but then losses on the road to Liberty and New Mexico 42-35 and 13-7 respectively. They won a couple in a row then near the end of the year. They beat Florida International and UTEP at home, and then they ended the season with a disappointing defeat to Sam Houston on the road 23-20. In terms of their rankings, total offense, they were 59th, so 391 yards per game, but their scoring offense was 83rd, just 24.2 points per game, so a lot of yardage, but not as many points. Total defense was 86th. They gave up nearly 400 yards per game. Scoring defense was 81st. They gave up just over 28 points per game. The rushing offense was 97th, just 125 yards per game and 13 touchdowns. Rushing defense was 52nd, so not bad. 146 yards per game given up and 20 touchdowns. Passing offense was 33rd, so it was pretty good. 266 yards per game, 23 touchdowns, but the passing defense was a bit rotten. It was 105th. They gave up 250 yards per game on average through the air and 19 touchdowns. Sacks, they were 74th with just 24. Tackles for loss, they were 54th with 70. Sacks allowed, they were 103rd. They gave up 32 sacks on the year. Tackles for loss allowed, they were 98th. They gave up 78. And turnover margin, they were 101st. Gained 16, but lost 21. It's kind of numbers there that nothing really jumps out. Offense was good, but the defense just didn't play. They didn't play complimentary enough ball basically last year, and turnover rate is not good. And like again, for a guy in his 18th season, you need to be doing a bit better than that.
Yeah, and the results, like I said, they're not that bad. A couple of one-score losses to some good teams. They were scoring pretty heavily in a lot of the other games as well. So when you look at it, you think to themselves like they were doing some things really well, and they were doing some things average. A lot of those categories, like say 70s, 80s, subpar, average at best. So they're not. There's no glaring issues, like say, apart from maybe like say give up a lot of sacks. But yeah, like you've got the crux of a team here. Like say, you can see like the kind of like what they wanted to do and what they wanted to be under Rick. So they will probably keep some of the fundamentals better. But yeah, it's not a team that needs tearing down and building back up. A few tweaks here or there, especially in some of the categories. Like I say, if they can run the ball a little bit better, because passing it isn't an issue really for them. So yeah, I think they've got a lot here to potentially build on. It's inheriting a team that has got some sort of established values they can just needs to work on.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's not a tear down rebuild job. It is you can go in there and you can have success if you hit the ground running type thing. And speaking of, let's have a look at their prospects for the 2024 season. And as always, we start with the quarterback, and he inherits a good quarterback here. So quarterback from Middle Tennessee is Nicholas Vadiato. He's 6'1", 195 pounds. As I say, they got a ton of holes to fill on this roster, but crucially, quarterback is not one of them. Fatiato's got the claim to be one of the better quarterbacks in the conference, not named Caden Salter. He's another dual threat quarterback. He saw time as a true freshman for the team. He threw for over 1,000 yards. He sat year 2, but he finally grabbed the starting spot last year. In year 3, he went 288 of 430, so 67% completion. That's damn good. 3,095 yards, 23 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. He rushed for 566 yards with 2 touchdowns as well, had 7 fumbles. Very high IQ quarterback. He knows when to run, he knows when to pass. He's not prone to panicking much in the pocket. When you watch him, he is a very steady presence. He's extremely accurate. He's got a deceptively good deep throw on him when he's allowed to air it out. They don't really take a lot of big shots downfield, but when they do, he usually more often than not finds his target. Turnover count Could do with coming down a bit, but again, first year starters. So we always say this first year starters can be a bit forgiven. Comes with experience. You hold on to the ball generally a bit better. I mean, in his freshman year, he had 8 fumbles on 40 snaps. So 7 for an entire season is a marked improvement. They're in very safe hands with Vatiata, but can they arm him and can they protect him? That is going to be the question. All the room behind him transferred way last year, so they've got a few transfers in to back him up. Luther Richardson from Golden West in JUCO and Xavier Williams from UCF. But Vattiato is going to be the guy here. And, one of the few teams, right, where we've got a stable quarterback situation and they've got a very good quarterback. They can feel positive about what they'll get with Vattiato this year.
Yeah, he's taken strides, like say, rough first year, but that's a very limited snap count. It's not fair to judge him year out. And then he's come in and he's grabbed the ball by the horns, put up some very respectable numbers across the year. He's not really at fault for probably most of the losses, I imagine. It's probably going to be that defense and giving the ball away too many times in general. But yeah, at least a new head coach, that's kind of what you always need. You need to at least know who your starting quarterback is. And even, like you say, with different coordinators or different scheme, like they should be able to adapt to it pretty easily. So whatever happens, I expect Nicholas to have another good year again and hopefully continue to take strides because, yeah, the team is relying on him. It's basically, like I say, it's kind of held up. He's the pillar underneath it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's problem, not having a quarterback problem makes your job a lot easier. So that's a good start for him there. In terms of the offense itself, the offensive coordinator is Bodie Reeder. This is his first season. So Mason's another CUSA head coach who's dived down into the FCS for his coordinators. So Bodie Reeder has spent the last 2 years as offensive coordinator at Northern Iowa. And then, of course, they had that offense that was led by Theo Day, the quarterback who attended the Lions local pro day, but been a pretty good offense the last few years. That he puts big emphasis on having a power run game to open up downfield shots for the quarterback. And as we've been saying, Middle Tennessee have not been able to run the ball well in recent years. So this offense is going to look different this year. They will put emphasis on the run so Vattiato can air it out a bit. He's also going to be the quarterback coach as well, Bodie Reeder, but this team has been gutted of talent and there's a lot that it needs to sort out. He needs a brand new offensive line. 4 starters are gone. The left tackle Sterling Pourchaire transferred to Texas Tech. The center Wilson Kelly is still in the portal, or he was last time I checked. The right guard Caleb Rutledge transferred to Georgia Tech, and the right tackle Jackie Graham graduated. They had 3 guys who played left guard during the season who are all back. That's Julius Pierce, Ethan Ellis, who did go in the portal, but he came back. And they did have a CUSA freshman team of the year guy in their ranks, Matteo Guevara, who saw a little bit of playing time as well. But past that, you're really looking at redshirts and freshmen here. The only transfer to come in as of when I did this was Marcus Miller. He was a left tackle prospect from UNLV, boy. He's barely played in 4 seasons so far. All the other new recruits are coming from high school. Like, they've got some big, beefy guys in this class. You've got 6'5", 304-pounder Shamar Crawford. You've got 6'7", 305-pounder Dumela Knox. Like, they're making no desire to hide the fact that they're going to train and develop these guys to help with this power run game that Reeder wants to put in there. But this is going to be a very raw unit to start the year. In terms of the running backs, the top 2 running backs return. Frank Peasant, he's a dual threat back. He initially went in the portal, but he seems to have gone back again. He's playing in the spring game. He's still listed on the roster, as is Jaden Creedle, who also returns. All the depth returns as well. They've got 1 new transfer as well from UConn, Brian Bruton. Creedle led the way with 416 yards, so it's been hard going for this team, and they've got a new O-line coming together. It may not get easier to begin with, but their room is intact, so continuity matters a lot. The wide receiver room has been gutted. Leading touchdown receiver Elijah Metcalf transferred to Marshall. Justin Olson, who had 400 yards, transferred to Charlotte. DJ England Chisholm had 300 yards, graduated. Zach Dobson graduated, and they had 5 more depth and rotational guys hit the portal. They do keep their leading receiver, Holden Willis. He had over 700 yards last season. He's a slot receiver, tight end hybrid But then they've only got Javonte Sherman, who comes back with triple-digit receiving yards from last year outside of him. So again, not much returning production. The portal has brought some help for them, though. They've got the outside wide receiver, Amari Kelly from Auburn, who apparently has been doing really well with Vatiati during spring training. They got another outside wide receiver from Vanderbilt, Gamarian Carter, and they got former Brown slot receiver Hayes Sutton, who had a year at Duke but did really well for Brown in the Ivy League. They've got a couple of three-star true freshmen as well. Well, they were, who are about to enter year two, so maybe they'll see the field this year as well. But again, pretty much going to be a new unit outside the wide receiver one. Weirdly, they didn't really use tight ends last year. When looking for tight end snaps on this team, there were barely any, so I don't know what goes on with them there. But the Titans they had last year are back, but they didn't really play that many snaps. They did bring in a transfer. They brought in Ryan Hurstkamp from Missouri, but this room's a complete anomaly this year. I would expect them to use the tight ends a lot if they're going to run the ball. Maybe you'll have some hybrid guys, slot receiver type things in there as well, and they flipped a few defensive line guys to the tight end position as well. But again, there's a lot of turnover here, right? When you have this much turnover on a team and you've not got much production coming back, it's very hard to predict what the offense is going to do. This is a rebuild from scratch. You got the quarterback, but you just don't know outside of this.
No, like I said, they lack any beef. I don't know how they're going to run the ball. Like you say, they don't have extra blockers because they don't really incorporate tight ends. They're basically replacing most of an O-line with kids that lack any real experience, apart from maybe one or two. Like you said, they're plugging holes with kids that are a bit wet behind the ears. So, despite having weapons and a quarterback, fundamentally, yeah, start of the year, it's going to be very difficult. Sacks was one of their biggest flaws last year, and it's impossible. I can't see that improving. Like I say, they gave up 32 and they were less than 100 on the rank in a year. So if they manage to keep it, like I said, do a little bit better in that department, they'll do well. But yeah, it's going to be about making holes. It's no good the running back not going into the portal and coming out and then not being able to block for him and create holes. Otherwise, they'll think, well, I wasted a year. I shouldn't have returned. So you're going to have to find a way to run the ball. So it's a difficult situation to be in as a first year OC, but how is he going to do it? Probably have to use some, like say, some trickeration. Like I say, the wide receivers probably have to use some motions to create a bit of space to help running the ball because they do lack the current, like say, muscle to get the job done in the trenches, it would appear.
Yeah, it's just really hard to predict at this moment in time. So this year is about finding as many guys as possible and holding on to them for next year so you can build some continuity. But hopefully, if they can run the ball a bit better, then that might give Ayatu the chance he needs to succeed. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, the defensive coordinator is Brian Stewart. This is obviously his first season as well on the new staff. So this is really interesting. For one coordinator, they went to the FCS. For the other coordinator, they went to the XFL. So Brian Stewart is the former defensive coordinator for the Houston Renegades, who in 2023 ranked top 2 in pretty much every major defensive statistic. He was also defensive back coach for the Detroit Lions in 2018 and 2019. So, that era when we had some good DBs on the team, when we had Slay, etc. He was here for that. He's vastly experienced in both the NFL and college football. He's the assistant head coach, defensive coordinator, safety coach for Middle Tennessee now. But what's he got to work with? The defensive line has been gutted as well. 4 of their starting / heavy rotation guys have gone to Power 4 programs. The star defensive tackle, Marley Cook, went to Miami. The edge, Quindarius Dunnigan, went to Michigan State. Zaylin Wood to Vanderbilt, and Richard Kinley to Louisville. And on top of that, the defensive tackles, Jordan Branch and Jordan Sterling, both graduated. That's another 700 plus snaps of starting experience gone. And Tyrese Edwards, another one of the rotation guys, is in the portal. James Stewart and Brandon Booker are the only edges returning who took triple-digit snaps last year, and only DeMonte Smith on the interior boasts triple-digit snaps from last year. The only portal addition on the line is the 6'3", 310-pound South Carolina defensive lineman Felix Hickson, who has not played a snap in 2 years as a Gamecock. Outside of that, there's a big bunch of freshmen and redshirt freshmen on the scene. So probably another unit that's going to undergo a lot of change this year. The linebacker room didn't escape the portal either. Their top guy, Sam Brumfield, was snapped up by Virginia Tech, another Power 4 transfer, and Jonathan Butler graduated. But they do have a lot of returning talent in the depth room. Parker Hughes, Drew Francis, Devin Curtis, Jalen Davis. They return a ton of starting snaps. And again, you got about 5 redshirt or true freshmen to refresh the depth. So it's in a better place than the line is, but they need someone to step up to take the starter spots. Secondary also suffered losses. Long-term starting corner Teldrick Ross graduated. Deontay Stanley's in the portal. Both starting safeties are gone. Jacoby Thomas was another Power 4 transfer. He went to Tennessee, and Trey Fluellen went to the NFL draft. In terms of the safeties, you've got Marvin Myers. He comes back after having 300 snaps last year. You've got sixth-year safety Brendan Harris. He comes from Wake Forest. He's a transfer this year. He started at Vanderbilt in 2019, so he's played with Derek Mason before, but he's only played 1,300 snaps since then. The lower rotation guys are all back as well, so hopefully some of them are ready to start progressing up to starter status. In terms of the corners, Tyrell Raby, DRA McDonald return after both logging starter level snaps last year. They had 3 picks and 8 pass breakups between them, so they've got a good pair of vets. They've brought in a Power 4 backup in the form of James Mons III from Indiana. And they've got 2 big boosts on the injury front. Their starting corner, Jalen Jackson, returns after missing all of 2023 with injury, as does their rotational piece, James Shellman IV. So these guys can stay healthy. There's actually a lot of talent still at corner, and there's depth there as well. But overall, like, these teams' trenches on both sides of the balls decimated by the portal and graduation, and how quick you can fix these holes determines the ceiling of this team. It's just very uncertain at the minute, but the defense has not escaped either, although I guess it is a good thing for the team that so many have gone to the Power 4. They're doing something right, but they've got to hang on to them eventually.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. Like you say, teams that have, like I say, have been keeping an eye on these players that are performing better than the team, snap them up. But yeah, now they've got a lot of holes to fill. So Brian Stewart, like I say, he actually was coached under Wade Phillips for the Houston Roughnecks. Like I say, he was their head coach. So working under Wade Phillips is a very good thing for a defensive coordinator. And last year on Houston team, he had Lions former linebacker Devontae Beckett, who was brilliant. They went 7-3 in the XFL, and they actually made the South Championship game. So he was the defensive coordinator of one of the best spring league teams last year. So I think that's a great hire. He would have definitely been in the UFL this year as a head coach or a defensive coordinator if it had not been hired by NTSU. So I think that for one, that's a great hire. Like I say, his defensive lines are known for getting to the quarterback. He's generated a lot of pressure. And like I say, he will whip these guys into shape, these new recruits. He's going to expect them to generate pressure and apply and make plays in the backfield. So I've got hope for this side of the ball. Like I say, DLI, like I say, linebackers are hurt. Got some defensive backs, like I say, they've got some guys there. They did have 16 takeaways last year, which is actually pretty good by college football standards. There was just too many giveaways. So they're not got a nose for the ball. There are some guys there for him to work with. So I think this side of the ball could do pretty well. And they did keep a lot of even the losses last year. They were blown out fairly rarely. Like I say, most of the losses were between like 7 to 10 points. So been like 1 to 1.5 scores. So I think if they can improve on that, they'll give the offense a chance to gain a little bit of breathing room. So yeah, I like the hire. And I think, like I say, if he does do well, like I say, that he could be the kind of guy that will guide them, like I say, at least keep the defense on a level playing field with the offense, which didn't pull its weight as much last year on D.
Yeah, I actually quite like the overall staffing of this as well. Like I say, on offense and defense, I think they've got some really good guys in there. So they've got the coaching side bedded in. Again, this is just going to be how many holes can you fill quickly this year? Because, like, especially when your trenches get rinsed on both sides of the ball, that becomes really difficult. But there's certainly room for hope for Middle Tennessee here. So maybe they're not going to blow the world away this year, but hopefully they will start moving on in the direction that they should be for a team of their standards. So the schedule 6 home, 6 away. The non-cons, they start off at home to Tennessee Tech, then they're on the road to Ole Miss. Then they actually have a CUSA game. They're at home to Western Kentucky. Then they're at home to Duke, and they're away at Memphis to finish the non-cons. It's a tough slate, that is. Then they got a bye. Then they're on the road to Louisiana Tech. Then they're at home to Kennesaw State, away to Jacksonville State and UTEP. Then they're at home to Liberty. Then they get another bye, and you finish at New Mexico State and Florida International. And I know that is rough on the non-cons, but you look at the away section in the CUSA: Louisiana Tech, UTEP, Florida International, I mean, even Jacksonville State. I know they're a good team, but it's not a road railing derailing experience there. There are winnable games on the road, and you got the harder teams at home. If you can get something going, there's possibility for some good wins there in year one.
Yeah, let's say Tennessee Tech, TTU, they're an FCS team. Ole Miss, Western Kentucky, Duke, and Memphis, good chance that they're going to chew them up and spit them out. But that's okay. Like I say, that's fine. After the bye is where their season really begins. Like you say, that is a stretch where do you want to do some damage? You want to pick up a lot of wins after your first bye and in between those byes here. I think there's some good games there to build on towards the end of the season in preparation for next year. So I think ultimately the overall record probably won't matter a lot to this year, to what a lot of people think. They'll just be trying to bed the offensive line in. I like to say, get a defensive coordinator to try build some scheme, and like I say, try retain some players for next year. But yeah, definitely a lot of winnable games. A few where, like I said, they'll get run over by the likes of Ole Miss and Duke. And I say maybe even Memphis, but fair game everywhere else, really. Like I say, they were competitive in all these fixtures nearly that they played last year, even in the losses. Like I said, they like I said, they got into a shootout with Liberty.
Yeah. And you know what? Fair play to them. They're non-cons. They go for it. They had Bama and Missouri last year.
Oh yeah, they don't
Put
give
in
out
th
themselves an easy schedule.
No, and that can help. You come up against some of these big teams, you take a few beatings, but it creates character going on later in the season. So maybe that might be a good thing for them. But yeah, certainly not the worst schedule for them. Finish this off, the player to watch. So I've got the wide receiver Amari Kelly here. He's 6 foot, 186 pounds. The Auburn transfer has my attention because when I was looking at stuff for Vattiato, they were showing the spring training footage of him and Kelly, and they have hit it off right away. So yeah, he's had 2 years of not seeing the field at Auburn, but he had to go through a coaching change there. So obviously Hugh Freeze is there now. He didn't recruit him there. So that's kind of left him stranded on the depth chart. It's not, a talent issue. It's more of a coaching issue with him. But he's actually reunited with the man who helped recruit him to Auburn. So the new Middle Tennessee receivers coach is Cornelius Williams. He recruited him to Auburn. He's at Middle Tennessee now. He's followed him there, but he's very feisty for an undersized outside receiver. He'll go block anything and anyone very willingly, give them hell doing it. Very aggressive in contested catches and high pointer catching. He runs a smooth, expanded set of routes. And like I say, he's caught the eye of the quarterback. This is nearly an entire new receiver room. So this isn't, he's not going to have to wait for the trust to develop with him against other more experienced receivers. They'll put the ball in his hand right away. I think this Vattiato and Kelly duo could be a very dangerous pairing in 2024. And with the team implementing the power run as well, you'll get to see him be able to do his work in the run game as well. So I'm predicting a very big year for Amari Kelly there at Middle Tennessee. Right. Let us move it on to our next team. And now we're going to talk about the New Mexico State Aggies, established 1893. They play at the Aggie Memorial Stadium in La Cruce, New Mexico. In terms of their rivalries, they've got two major ones. The fierce in-state rivalry with the New Mexico Lobos, dubbed the Rio Grande rivalry, began back in 1894 when New Mexico was not even a state. They've also got a cross-border rivalry with UTEP, the Miners, in a series which also has huge history all the way back to 1914. It's nicknamed the Battle of I-10, named as such because Interstate 10 connects El Paso and La Cruce. Sees the teams fight over two unique trophies. You've got the Silver Spade and the Brass Spittoon. So, yeah, good rivalries down there in New Mexico. In terms of 2022, the record, they were 7-6 as an independent. 2023, the first year in the CUSA, they went 10-5 and they were 7-1 in the CUSA, losing only to champions Liberty. However, this has become a very good team over the last few years. They were one of the whipping boys, kind of, who used to get forgotten about a lot of the time. Jerry Kill turned them into contenders, and they were rocked after the end of last season by his resignation, which was one of the most shocking moments this off season. In 2 years, he took them from a running joke and turned it around. He went to successive bowl games. He got the teams only their second bowl win since 1960. And again, in their first season in the CUSA, accepting the brute juggernaut that was Liberty, they swept everything before them and they got to double-digit wins. And 90%, that's 90% of their team has been or come from JUCO. So that's just an incredible achievement to do it with so many guys who've played junior college football. They are not a joke anymore, and his replacement has a massive hole to fill. And his replacement is Tony Sanchez. He's 50, first season in the job. He is an offensively minded coach. Sanchez is deeply ingrained in New Mexico. He played college football for the Aggies. He's coached high school in La Cruz. He's known very well on the recruiting trails. More recently, he was the wide receivers coach for the team under Kill. So this is an internal appointment. He does have experience as a head coach. He had a 4-year stint with UNLV between 2015 and 2019. That's another very difficult place to win. And the overall record was 20-40. It's not great, but that was his first head coaching job. Not everyone succeeds at first. He's learned and watched what Killer's done firsthand. Now it's going to be up to him to carry on that legacy, but what a job he's taken over, right? This almost, it has more difficulty to it. You go to a team that nothing's expected of you, great. You get a bit of time in, but you're coming to a team that was a joke and now it's a CUSA contender already, and you've got to maintain the standards that Kill implemented there. This is a big job for Sanchez.
Yeah, he's got to try keep doing everything they did really well. And like I say, they lost a head coach. Like I say, they lost a lot. Like I say, we'll look at, like I say, so he's got a hell of a job on his hands because he's got to try replicate what he did last year, but with like, what, 40% of, like I say, returning maybe roster, like I say, because like I said, they've been good. So it makes sense to put someone already inside because they're not going to change too much. He'll know what works and what don't work. He'll know the players that he's going to have to rely on and that are going to be like leaned on. And like I said, they'll probably wanted an internal hire. It makes sense for team morale and like I say, scheme wise as well. So yeah, hell of a job on his hands. But like I say, if he can kind of like, if he was like under the ingrained of he's got anything from Jerry Kill, then in that aspect, they should be okay. Like I say, the coaching wise, I don't see any issues. It's just going to be like, it's going to be roster wise.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I like this. I think it's a very smart hire. Like, not just with the team, but in the state, very well known, knows the high school, knows recruiting. It's very big for a team like this who's going to rely on a lot of homegrown recruits. They say 90% JUCO guys. That's crazy to make a team that good out of so many guys coming out of junior college. But yeah, it's going to be tough for Tony Sanchez there. And very quickly, like, the job that Jerry Kill did there was just, how insanely good was that? Like 2 years ago, we were doing this show before he was hired there, and New Mexico State were one of the running jokes on here. And like the way he's turned that round so quick, just it beggars belief, really.
Yeah, it's been pretty remarkable to turn around. Like you say, he came in, he took first year, he kind of like laid down the ground rules. This is how they're going to be. And then they bought in within a year. And then, like I say, last year, everything kind of just went their way. It kind of just went perfectly. Everything just clicked. And yeah, did he leave too early? Maybe. He may live to regret this decision. Like I say, handing in that notice so soon, depending on what happens in the future. But yeah, I'd have liked him stay another year and try to at least win like I say, go all the way this time. But yeah, uh, and then like I say, you kind of got the exodus, which happens because like I say, when you play for a coach and you fall for them a little bit, it kind of makes sense naturally that you follow them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to see this resignation had wide-ranging consequences for this team in terms of their draft stuff. No New Mexico State player was drafted in 2024. The last New Mexico State player to be drafted was in 2020. And you should know who this is, right? We should know who this is. Do you remember who this is? Patricia cut him before the season, and we
Was it
spent a fifth round pick on him.
was it a defender?
No, it was a running back. The guy we all got really excited over, and then they cut him after spending a fifth round pick on him.
Oh, the little guy, the fast guy.
Jason Huntley.
The Eagles picked him up, didn't they?
Jason Huntley. Yep.
Yeah,
Last
the
player to
returner.
go.
Yeah, right. Same way. That was quite annoying.
I really like Jason Huntley, and then Patricia cut him before they even he gave him chance to do anything. I hated that. I really passionately hated that. But yeah, we picked him at number 172 in 2020. And just because it was on, the last guy we picked from them before that was actually in 2012. We drafted the defensive back Jonte Green, pick number 196. But as far as I'm aware, he didn't really do a great deal with us. In terms of the 2023 results, and this was the crazy thing. So after 5 games, they were 2-3. They started the season. They lost to UMass at home, 41-30, because we did a show on it. And we're just crazy how UMass dropped 40 on them. Then they beat Western Illinois 58-21. Then they lost on the road to Liberty 33-17. They beat New Mexico in the Rio Grande rivalry 27-17. Then they lost to Hawaii 20-17. And at this point, we're like, okay, this is done. You lose to UMass and Hawaii, but then they rattled off 8 wins in a row at home to Florida International and Sam Houston, away to UTEP and Louisiana Tech, at home to Middle Tennessee, away at Western Kentucky, away at Auburn. Remember that big win over SEC Auburn on the road, 31-10. They absolutely twonked them. Then they beat Jacksonville State at home 20-17. And then to finish the season, they lost the CUSA championship game 49-35 against Liberty in what was one of the championship games of the season. That game was phenomenal. I loved every bit of it. And then they lost their bowl game to Fresno State, the New Mexico Bowl, 37-10. In terms of the rankings, their total offense, they were 43rd in the nation, 412.4 yards per game. Scoring offense was 61st, so 27.5 points per game. The total defense was 83rd, 392 yards per game given up, but the scoring defense was 44th. Only 22.8 points per game given up. So gave up a lot of yards, but not a lot of points. The rushing offense, that was 14th in the nation, nearly just a smidge under 200 yards per game and 22 touchdowns scored. The rushing defense was 48th, so it was top 50, 140 yards per game given up and 22 touchdowns. Passing offense was 80th, 213 yards per game and 28 touchdowns. Passing defense was 104th, so they gave up 250 yards per game, but only 19 touchdowns through the air. In sacks, they were 73rd with 31. Tackles for loss, they were 89th with 79. So again, struggling to get in the backfield. Sacks allowed, though, they were 41st with just 24. Tackles for loss allowed, they were actually 13th in the nation. They only gave up 62, so that O-line did well. The turnover margin, they were 77th. They gained 13 and they lost 15. I mean, it was just such a weird season, wasn't it? You lose to Hawaii and UMass. Well, then you rattle off 8 wins. Auburn, that was such an impressive game. They actually deserved to win that. They just looked so much better. And overall, that team didn't have very many weaknesses.
No, their only weakness really was giving up a lot of passing yards. Their secondary, I'd say, it got cooked, but the red zone, they weren't that bad. So the story tells what they could chew up yardage on both sides of the ball, give it up and chew it up, score touchdowns. But then, like I said, they didn't give up tons of touchdowns, so they could blow teams away pretty comfortably because, like I say, they held them to field goals or could make them turn over and downs, especially inside the 20s. So yeah, they were very good in situational downs when the field got really small and restricted. So yeah, they were very good, like I say, and they didn't give it away a lot. So yeah, there weren't many turnovers on either side of the ball.
No, no, it just was a solid team. It just took a little bit of time to find its feet, but after that, that was great. And again, go back to the open game, one of the most dominating performances from a group of five team over a power five team last year. They deserved to win that, and they got several million for the troubles. But it's a new season, it's a new coach. How do things look going into 2024? And I mean, we're starting at quarterback. But in the aftermath of Jerry Kill's departure, New Mexico State lost nearly 40 players to the portal. That's basically half their roster. That included their entire quarterback room. Well, almost everybody. So the starter Diego Pavia, the backup Blake Berlovitz, and the Taysom Hill clone Eli Stowers all transferred to Vanderbilt, where Jerry Kill is now an offensive advisor. And the last man standing in that room, Gavin Frakes, who actually started for the team as a true freshman in 2022, he transferred to the Power Four with Virginia. So the reinforcements, they've come through the portal. And one of the more intriguing quarterbacks here, and I've actually named the show after him. We called the show Deuces Wild today. Kentucky transferred Deuce Hogan, one of the stars of QB1 Beyond the Lights, the show. It comes to town as a fifth-year veteran looking for his first starting job, and he's probably got the inside track for this. 6'4", 217 pounds, was a highly touted recruit who lost his way. His competition comes from Wake Forest transfer Santino Marucci. His only game time as a starter came against Pittsburgh last season. They've got a couple of recruits out of JUCO in Parker Awad and Brandon Nunez. And they've got some redshirt QBs, Jeff Davison and Paul Kieramans, who are both redshirt quarterbacks, but they've never taken a starting snap. But this does seem like it might be Deuce Hogan's job, Ryan. Like I say, this is a guy who has lost his way, but may just have found his home.
I'd be lying if I said on paper it didn't worry me. Like I say, you kind of worry about, like say, a guy that's like it's last chance saloon for Juice, and the fact that he didn't stay and win the job to try battle Brock Vandegrift when the door was wide open for him to finally start Kentucky. He in fact decided to leave and not stick it out and battle it. So yeah, he's gone somewhere because he knows, like you say, he's got a realistic chance of starting. I have no idea what he offers. I don't think anyone does, but he's got a build. He has a kind of reputation, like say, from being, like say, part of the contest and being a star. The other guys that are brought in, like say, odd jobbers, like say, it's going to be difficult. Like I say, one of them wins the job, but yeah, I'll keep tempered expectations. One of them could come out and really surprise me, but it doesn't fill you with lots of hope on paper. Like I say,
Did,
so it's going to be interesting.
did you watch the Beyond the Light series with him in it? He did it with Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson, like two guys who've gone picks 1 and 4 in a draft and in the NFL now. Like there's always one, isn't there? There's always a Tate Martell.
Yeah, I've seen lots of shows like that, like saying the Elites 11s, the QB ones. Like I say, you always get those random kids, like I say, that the kind of the world is expected of them, and they're kind of like that photo, like say, where there's like the pretty girls next to the pool, and the girl that's in the shower cap and the full leotard looking like a dork. I suppose he's the dork, like yeah, he's the one that's not panned out for. Like I say, why is he still in college? And the rest are in the NFL because, like I say, it's not clicked for him. But do you know what? The stars could align for him, and he could go out and have a brilliant year. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like I say, he's probably got a bit of a chip on his shoulder by now. So he's got something to prove at least. He should have a bit of fire in him that the fact he's had to come here to get his chance. That would probably annoy me. And yeah, he's going to have to make most of it because he's probably not getting another year.
No, no, you wouldn't think so. Or if he has a good year and he's got eligibility left, you'd expect him to jump straight back up again into the Power Four. So it seems to be Deuce Hogan's job. We may be wrong. None of these are always right, but that seems to be where we're going at the moment. So on offense, the offensive coordinator is Tyler Wright. This is his first season. This is technically Sanchez's second offensive coordinator already, and the team has not played a snap. He initially hired Jerry Kill's running back coach, Ghali Muhammad Langford, as OC, but he joined the exodus to Vanderbilt to be the running back coach there. So Tyler Wright got a double promotion. He went from special teams coach to quarterback coach and pass game coordinator, and now he's offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, all in the space of one off season. He's worked under Kill a long time, and he's also been a grad assistant at TCU as well. But again, this is not going to be easy. The team has lost a ton of talent. The running back room has been heavily impacted, like the quarterbacks. Their star running back, Star Thomas, the guy we told you to watch out for last year, he transferred to California. He's going to join Jaden Ott in the Power Four. He had 850 yards last season. Ott and Thomas is going to be a hell of a pairing for Cal this year. Jamoni Jones is in the transfer portal. Macklin Young transferred to Vanderbilt again to be with Kill. They do have a room to work with, though. The second leading rusher, Monte Watkins, is back. He had 580 yards last year. They managed to prize Mike Washington Jr. out of the portal from Max side Buffalo. He has over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns in the last 2 seasons. And they've got a very curious commit case here. They've got a commitment from former 4-star Oklahoma recruit Seth McGowan. I don't know if you remember or know that name, right? Very curious case. He had 570 yards and 4 touchdowns as a freshman in 2020 for Oklahoma. Big future looked right ahead for him, but then he was dismissed from the program for an arrest, charges of robbery, assault, and battery with a dangerous weapon. Those troubles have kept him away from Division One football. He's been playing in JUCO while things have been getting resolved. Everything seems to have settled now. He's back. And if he can repeat his form as a freshman in the Big 12, then the CUSA could have a huge problem on its hands with him. He can potentially play well above the level of the conference if he's not lost it. Receiving room has also been stripped bare. The leading receiver by yards, Jonathan Brady, also committed to California. Leading receiver by touchdowns, Trent Hudson, transferred to Mississippi State after 10 touchdowns last year. The third leading receiver, I mentioned him, Eli Stowers, went to Vandy, as we've already mentioned. Bryce Childress went to Western Kentucky in the CUSA, and Jordan Parker headed to Western Michigan. And that leaves Cordell David and Donovan Faupel, who had 277 yards between them last year. And there's just been one transfer at this point. They've got the former Nebraska recruit Latrell Neville, but he comes up from JUCO, but he's never taken a snap in the FBS. They've got 2 new high school recruits, Antonio Pride and Isaiah Wright. He's 6'4", 205 pounds. He's a big boy, going to play on the outside, but it's just a bunch of minor rotation and second-year guys who haven't really seen a snap otherwise. So this group is going to be very hard to predict. 3 of their 5 tight ends outside of Stowers ran out of eligibility. That leaves Trevor Stevens, who played 26 snaps, and redshirt freshman Mason Graham, who sat out his first year. They've brought in Hunter Talley from the portal. He's from Arkansas, who initially committed to Missouri State this offseason, but he re-entered the portal again, came to New Mexico State. Other than that, it's redshirts and freshmen again. The one area of the offense that has held firm, though, thankfully for them, is the offensive line. You've got the left tackle, Shiaze Pete, the left guard, AJ Vaipulu, the center, Cannon Yarrow, the right guard, Louis Canepa, and the right tackle, Cedric Claiborne, all return for 2024, as did pretty much all the rotation pieces that filled in. They were a top 40 unit in sacks allowed and a top 15 unit in tackles for loss allowed. This gives them a big foundation to work with, and they picked up a big JUCO acquisition, Jake Waltman from Paloma College. A lot of FBS teams were after him. So the skill positions have been rinsed here, right? But you do have a fully intact offensive line, which is good. If Deuce Hogan's good, you do have something to work with here. But skill guys, you've got to find them very quickly.
Yeah, they literally all saw, like say, they've gone for their moment in the sun, all of them. Some of them interesting. I don't understand Star Thomas. Why would you go split carries with Jane Knott? Why wouldn't you go to a team where he's going to be a running back too?
Be the
That's
main
an odd
attraction.
move. That's odd. And then everyone got to Vanderbilt. Well, it's Vandy. Come on, like him. I know they're all going to go play big time football and snaps, but I'm not sure collectively what they're all going to do. So, but yeah. All line has stayed, which is good for whichever QB wins the job. But yeah, I'm not sure who they were throwing the ball to. Like I say, who's going to replicate, like I say, a 10 touchdown season, or who's going to come close to 1,000 yards out of the guys they've already got and the guys they've picked up. So yeah, offensive coordinator going to get very creative. Like I say, you're going to have to find ways to get the ball in people's hands, and someone is going to have to step up and be like the go-to guy. Like I say, whether that's going to be a tight end or going to be a receiver, someone's going to have to make themselves readily available. So yeah, it's going to be difficult, but having an intact O line at least gives you a little bit of breathing room and will help with that.
Exactly. I suppose if you're going to have one unit remain intact, if
I'd
they're going to
rather
get
have an
pillaged,
intact O
yeah,
line than
yeah,
lose all my O line and have some receivers.
yeah, exactly. Because it's no point having receivers if you can't throw at them and your quarterback's lying on his back. So, that is the positive there for them. Switching it over to the defense, the defensive coordinator is Joe Morris. So Sanchez has actually pinched the DC of a divisional rival to lead his defense. So Morris has spent the last 3 years building the Sam Houston Bearcats defense as defensive coordinator and defensive ends coach. So in their debut FBS season last year, Morris's defense, it was the number one ranked scoring defense in the CUSA. It gave up a measly 18.4 points per game in conference. Even Liberty, who scored at nearly 40 points per game, only were able to get 21 against them as they nearly produced a massive upset there. He's wasting no time in La Cruz at all. The vast majority of transfers coming in are on defense. So we mentioned he's a DN's coach. This defensive line needs to up its production and it's getting a makeover. The edges have been affected by the portal. So Gabe Peterson transferred to Houston. Nikhil Webb Walker transferred to Colorado. But they do get a starter back in Buddha Politi. He had 4 sacks, 2 forced fumbles last year, but only Noah Arinze saw triple-digit snaps at edge otherwise. So they're getting a lot of company from the portal to try and up their production. You've got the starting Montana Grizzlies edge, Cale Edwards. He arrives fresh off the Grizzlies' appearance in the FCS championship game. Houston took them and they got one back from Houston. They lost a guy to Houston, but they did get 6'5", 260-pound edge Justin Beadles. They got a former JUCO All-American in Derek Burns Jr., who committed to 3 different teams this offseason alone, but he finally got convinced by New Mexico State. So Edge Room has a lot of new competition in there. The interior is completely gone. Their sack leader, Isaiah Reed, headed to the draft. Sterling Webb went to Missouri. Dion Wilson Jr. went to Syracuse. Gabriel Iniguez followed the former DC Nate Dreiling to Utah State. All these guys played more than 470 snaps on the D-line. The next highest snap count for a player was 34. That was Denver Warren, and he transferred to Sam Houston. The next was Marcus Buckley, who had 28 snaps. He graduated. To my knowledge, not one single snap is returning from an interior D lineman from 2023, which is incredibly rare indeed. And the portal's not bought any long-term solutions for them. They got the 6 foot 300-pound nose tackle Naki Fahina from UNLV and 6 foot 280-pound 3-tech Matt Lawson from Northwestern. But both of them are 6th-year seniors, and over their previous 10 years combined, they've got less than 1,000 snaps of experience. They did get Henry Davis III from JUCO, once again out of Palomar College. So they've been exporting a lot of talent to the FBS, but he's making a big leap up. Outside of that, whole bunch of freshmen and red shirts fine to fill the gaps. So interior, a lot of issues. Similar story in the linebacker room. The starter Keyshawn Elliott transferred to Arizona State, taking his 900 snaps of production with him. They do keep Sony Alpia. The redshirt freshman broke through into a starting role last year, played pretty well, so they do have a good starter in there. They do utilize a lot of linebacker safety hybrids as well, so it's kind of difficult to see how the room is affected with this change of coaching? Are people going to start playing linebackers, safety? Are they going to keep them as hybrids? They did get the UTSA linebacker Avery Morris out of the portal, who played 440 snaps for the Roadrunners last season. So potential there for him. Secondary, though, decimated. The cornerback room, their top corner, Andre Seldon, left for TCU in the Big 12. BJ Skulak headed to the NFL draft. Reggie Akles left for UConn. Torrin Union is in the portal. That leaves Keontae Glinton, who had 6 pass breakups in a rotation role last season. However, they snagged a starting corner from a CUSA rival. DeKerrick Hobbs arrives from Sam Houston. He's following his defensive coordinator. They've landed former JUCO star Jabril Wright, who comes in from Cincinnati. He failed to establish himself there, but he wrecked JUCO. And they picked up 2 current JUCO stars. They got Desmond Hatfield Rushton. He's a huge 6'3", 190-pound corner from American River College, who's coming off a 4 interception season. And they got Lenar Kelly Jr. from Sierra College. And they've also managed to keep their freshman on the roster, so gonna have a lot of second-year guys they can call upon as well. But for the most part, brand new room, and the safeties / linebackers did not fare much better either. Their star safety Miles Rouser left for Arizona State. The Sun Devils took a few of these guys. Starter Mecky Miller went to Cincinnati. Another starter, JJ Derville, left for Northern Iowa, who are FCS. So as a starter, he moved down. Jordan Vincent left for Utah State. He had 430 snaps. Jeremiah Vassell left for UNLV. Devin Kirkland graduated. The only survivor of that room is Dylan Early, and he initially went in the portal, but he came back. If he'd have gone, they would have lost everyone who took major snaps in the safety room, but he is back. He had 2 picks last year. He played nearly 500 reps. And Joe Morris has managed to coax another one of his old starting secondary to follow him. They got DeMarcus Crosby. He comes from Sam Houston. He had a stellar season, highlighted by 4 interceptions. So you've got a starter right there. They managed to get 2 safeties from the Power 4. They got Oklahoma State safety Nick Session, and they got Arizona State safety Josiah Cox. They're looking to rebuild that room, and they've scoured JUCO as they always do. They got DeMarco Mura from Riverside City College. He's racked up over 100 tackles in the last 2 years, back to back. So again, they've tried very hard to find new faces, but it's going to be a much changed defense this year. Overall, this is a team undergoing a mountain of change after having one of its most successful head coaches in recent history. But they got the O-line, they got Hogan, but like this defense, right? It's not lost players, it's lost rooms of players. But they made a very smart hire at DC here.
Yeah, like I say, it's hard to see them getting much pressure on the quarterback this year. Like I say, an entirely new interior D-line, and they brought in bodies, like I say, a lot of bodies, a lot of production, but a lot of guys that have not played anywhere near against this level of opposition before. Lots of JUCO, like I say, lots of FCS guys that are making some big jumps, some even bigger jumps. So they're going to kind of be relied on pretty quickly and quickly heavily. So it's going to be interesting to see. Like I say, the backroom picked up some, like I say, decent, like I say, power school transfers that wanted to come in for some playing time that are probably later on in their eligibility. So there's some good holes plugged there. But yeah, it feels like a proper odd job mix of guys, like I say, from all over the nation, all different levels. Kind of just going to throw some stuff at the board and see what works. But yeah, some of them will emerge, like I say, but their defense, like I said, it was very good last year, especially in, like I say, red zone situations. Could go yards, but didn't get a lot of touchdowns. It's going to be severely tested this year. I won't be surprised if we see a lot of regression, but that comes when half your defense decides to leave and get big school options. So victim of their own success, unfortunately.
Yeah, successful team, head coach leaves. That's a recipe for disaster when it comes to players. But again, smart hires when it comes to their staff. So hopefully Morris is going to be able to get them up and running pretty quickly. And let's say he's a DN's coach, so who knows what's going to happen. That D-line could surprise us. In terms of the schedule, 6 home, 6 away. So they're start at home to Southeast Missouri on the non-con. Then they're at home to Liberty. Second week, they're at home to Liberty. Then they're away at Fresno State. They're away at Sam Houston. Then they're at home to New Mexico, which is part of the non-con. Then they hit the bye. They're away at Jacksonville State. Then at home to Louisiana Tech. Then they hit a bye again. And then they're away at Florida International. They're at home to Western Kentucky. Away at Texas A&M. Away at Middle Tennessee. And at home to UTEP. I mean,
That's pretty rough all the way through.
It is. So your home schedule is, Liberty to start with, but you've got New Mexico, Louisiana Tech, Western Kentucky, UTEP. You can win a few there, but you're on the road to Jacksonville State. Yeah.
They might not win an away game.
Sam Houston, they're going to be pissed they took the defensive coordinator with them, but Fresno State, they've been good in the Mountain West. Jacksonville State, Middle Tennessee, who knows, but I don't know that. It could be difficult for them, that, right?
Yeah. I think they're going to have a poor year. And that's not because they're a bad team. That's just because they're a team that has been ravaged. And we've seen it in recent seasons where teams have gone, like say 11, 12 wins. And like say the coach is gone. And everyone's gone with them. And the next thing you know, they're a bottom feeder and they're starting again. They're climbing back. They're on the bottom rung of the ladder. Yeah. Like I say, the fact is, like I say, the quarterback, most likely, even if he does well this year, could be gone next year. Half the guys they've brought in don't have a next year. So they're going to, this time next year, we're going to be talking about the exact same thing of a lot of these guys need replacing. So yeah, it's a big old job. This is, like I say, a multi-layer project again, just to get back in contention potentially this year. But that is the life of a college football team, especially when you find success.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I've no doubt this will work out long term. It just depends how much they can fix so quickly. Because again, this is probably the worst turnover any team's going to have in the conference. So it's incredibly difficult there. In terms of the player to watch, I actually got the center here, Kanan Yarrow. He's 6'1", 195 pounds, sixth year senior. He's going to need to be the field commander for his new quarterback, whoever it may be. He's given up just 2 sacks in over 1,600 pass blocking snaps. So he's going to keep him upright. He's given up just 10 total pressures in the last 2 seasons, just 10 pressures in 2 seasons. He's played against Power 5 opposition like Wisconsin and Auburn. He's not surrendered a single pressure in any of those games. And his run blocking improved dramatically last season as well. So he's evolved into a great dual purpose center. And like I say, it's the field general of unit. If he's good, your offense is going to be better. And I will also give an honorable mention to Seth McGowan. Like the world is at his fingertips, and he's back. Like, he could be the leading rusher in the CUSA by some distance, but he might not be. So we'll see. We'll move it on. And next, we're going to be talking about the Sam Houston Bearcats, established 1912. They play at the Bowers Stadium in Huntsville, Texas. In terms of the rivalries, they've got 2 predominant rivalries. The biggest, the Battle of Piney Woods rivalry with Stephen F. Austin, named after 2 schools, named after Texas heroes, Sam Houston and Stephen Austin. The winner earns a 21-pound solid cedar trophy that displays replica pistols attached to a tombstone with the logos from both universities engraved on the handles of the pistols. Prior to that trophy, they actually had a pair of actual Colt Walker pistols, which were the original prize awarded to the winning teams, but they were lost and never replaced. But that rivalry is on hold because Sam Houston moved away from the WAC and they don't play each other at the moment. However, their other in-state rivalry against Texas State is emerging from slumber. It's set to renew this year after a period of quiet since Texas State made the move up from the FCS. It's a home game for the Bearcats as well, but they're going to play it at the Houston Texans Energy Stadium in front of potentially a massive crowd. So Texas State versus Sam Houston will be one to watch, been played in an NFL stadium. 2022 record, they were 5-4. They were part of the WAC in the FCS. 2023, they were 3-9. They went 2-6 in the CUSA, so not as successful as Jacksonville State in the first year. However, the numbers will tell a story, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the coach, Kurt Charles Keeler, also known as Casey Keeler. He's 64, about to start his 11th season with Sam Houston. As of 2023, Keeler has 3 Southland Conference championships, a WAC championship, 14 FCS playoff wins, and a national title through 8 seasons at Sam Houston. It was the first in the program's history. As Bearcat, Keeler has become both the all-time FCS playoff wins leader and the only coach to win an FCS title with 2 different schools. He won one with Delaware as well, and they're going to be joining the conference next year. So one of his previous schools is coming up. He's 88 and 36 overall. Last year was Keeler's first in the FBS as a head coach. Given Jacksonville State's initial success, a 3-9 record, it might be easy to think they had a bad year, but they lost 2 games in overtime. They nearly beat Liberty and Western Kentucky and UTEP, so they were a competitive team. They did not quite get the rub of the green, and they were certainly not out their depth. They did start 0-8, but they did finish 3-1 to end the season, so they have a platform. This was not as easy going as Jacksonville State came up, but Sam Houston showed, in part, that they do actually belong at this level, and Casey Keeler, I think, would be relatively happy with that in year 1.
Yeah. See, if they went 3-1 and then like they went 8-0 to end the season, I'd probably be more worried. Like I say, it was something I said, like I said before they came up, I thought it was a mistake. I thought it was too soon. I thought they weren't ready. And I fought through 8 games. Like I said, yeah, it was too much too soon. Like I said, some very close losses. And like I say, held BYU to 14, Air Force to 13. So they started very well on defense. Like I say, it took, like I say, until week 4 for the offense to wake up. Like I say, in the overtime, Jacksonville State lost. But yeah, very up and down, topsy-turvy. It's kind of what I expected. And for such basically a legendary head coach, I thought he's going to get a pretty long leash. Like you say, and they ended the season well. Like I say, against Kennesaw State, like I say, a team that has now made the jump up as well, so they can play more games against them in the future. So that was a good thing to see. Like I say, so yeah, they have to be better this year. Like I said, they know what to expect now. They know what standard they have to play to, and they'll play probably a lot of these opponents again. So yeah, the wins and losses probably meant very little to them in the grand scheme of things, if anything. Just making the jump up was probably a bit of a shock to the system. Like I say, they did get spanked a few times, but yeah, they should be better this year. Like I say, they probably will be a bit better in conference as well. I expect them to be a little bit more competitive in that sense here. The only direction they can go in is up this year. Like I say, at 64, I don't know how long he's got left, but he's probably going to want to leave the team in the best position he can in the FBS for whoever does take over. So yeah, he's probably now thinking about, like I say, how he wants to leave them, like I say, leave his legacy. But yeah, it could have gone a lot worse. They could have gone winless. And they were, like I say, apart from LA Tech, they could have gone winless because, like I say, the other 2 wins were pretty by low margins.
Yeah, it was tough sledding, but it's not as bad as their record gives. So, we'll see. You want to be looking towards bowl eligibility this year. If you can reach that magic 6-win column, that will be a good season for them. In terms of their draft stuff, no one was drafted in 2024. Last draft pick was in 2022. Sam Houston, right? You
Was it a wide receiver?
was a cornerback. Cornerback. Began with a Z, his first name. I'm pretty sure you really liked him coming through. I could be wrong. Zion McCullum.
Oh, yeah. The
Yeah,
brother of the kid at the Bucks.
yeah,
He's really cheap. Yeah, no, Zion, yeah, he was very good. Like I say, he
yeah.
was very good in college.
Yeah, he was drafted by Tampa in 2022. The Lions have never drafted anyone from Sam Houston as of yet, so maybe that will change this year. So, in terms of the 2023 stuff, so the results, so yeah, they went 0-8. So they started away at BYU. They lost 14-0, but just 14. They lost to Air Force 13-3. They lost 38-7 to Houston. They didn't get blown out in that. Then they nearly beat Jacksonville State at home, 38-35 loss in overtime. Away at Liberty, it was just 21-16. Away at New Mexico State, it was just 27-13, just 2 scores. Then they lost at home to Florida International in double overtime, 33-27. They lost 37-34 at home to UTEP. But then they won 3 of their last 4. They beat Kennesaw State 24-21, although Kennesaw State was still FCS at that point. They're away at Louisiana Tech. They won 42-27. They lost away at Western Kentucky, but again, just 28-23, just 5 points. And then they beat Middle Tennessee 23-20 to rank out the season. In terms of the rankings for 2023, again, the FCS team rankings, the new teams are not on the NCAA site, so you have to go outside of it. Their total offense was 116th, 311 yards per game, and the scoring offense was also 116th. They scored on average around 20 points per game. The total defense was 86th, 394 yards per game given up, but the scoring defense was 62nd. So they gave up a lot of yards, but again, didn't concede much. 26 points per game on average there. The rushing offense was 126th, 88.8 yards per game. Although they did get 13 touchdowns, the rushing defense was 90th. They gave up 163 yards per game, nearly double what they got themselves, and 25 touchdowns given up, again, double what they scored on the ground. The passing offense was 65th with 222 yards per game and 15 touchdowns. Passing defense was 77th, gave up 230 yards per game with 14 touchdowns. In sacks, they were 122nd. They only had 17 sacks on the year, but sacks allowed, they were 35th. They only gave up 20. Turnover margin stuff I cannot find outside of that, but very, very easy to see what happens with the offense. They just can't get the run game going. Your new team up at the new level. You can't keep time of possession. That's the big problem there. The defensive numbers are all right, but, that tells a story in itself what really went wrong for them. Just offense completely imbalanced.
Yeah. Like I say, they were in some close games, but the offense just could not get anything going. Just too many punts, too many giving the ball back. And that led to them losing games where could have won. There was a lot of, like I say, small score lines. Like I say, they could have beaten Air Force. Like I say, they lost 13-3. But yeah, if you can't generate offense when you've got the ball on the field and capitalize on that, then the man and one of the worst teams in the nation against the quarterback. Offensive lines, they just don't have to worry about you. Like I say, you're not able to, like I say, get sacks, get tackles for losses. Like I say, it's bad. But they know where they need to be better, and that's not ever a bad thing.
No, exactly. It's like, yeah, you got to implement your run game this year. Give your quarterback a chance. And speaking of how do things look for 2024 for this team? So at the quarterback position, last year's starter Keegan Shoemaker graduated. The third string quarterback Xavier Ward transferred to San Jose State. The well-traveled Grant Gunnell, who we seem to mention every year on a different team, he was the backup. He returns. He's been in college since 2019, and he's not played meaningful snaps since 2020, and he's now on his fourth team. The likely starter, I believe this is where they're going to go, comes via transfer. Central Michigan starter Jace Bauer has arrived in Huntsville. He's a dual threat quarterback who threw for 1,800 yards last season, 12 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. On the ground, though, 500 yards and 10 touchdowns. But they have also gotten another dual threat in via the portal in the form of the JUCO transfer Hunter Watson from Iowa Community College. He had 1,900 passing yards, 22 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions in 2023 with over 700 yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground. So the plan certainly seems to involve getting in a dual-purpose quarterback to help with the run game, Ryan. They've got a pair of good options to pick from here.
Yeah, like I say, just don't go with Grant. That's all I'm going to say. At this point, he offers very little to nothing, I think. Go with one of the other guys. But yeah, if you can't run the ball, handing it off, like I say, and that's something you struggle with, then Wildcat, I'll just run it under center here. QB reads. Simply, like I say, give it a guy, like I say, that can bite on the end, can read a defense, and just keep it and take off. It will work eventually. It will fool defenses. It will get you cheap yards if your quarterback can pull the ball out effectively and knows how to slide. Like I say, that's something they were not good at this year. So yeah, like I said, there one of them will be better than last year because, like I said, it's hard to be worse than they were last year. They were just very ineffective. So yeah, they both offer something, and it's still a very new team. Like I said, losing the start is never easy after a year where not a lot went right. But maybe that'll be a blessing in disguise, actually. Maybe one of these guys can come in and, like I say, implement their own kind of style on the offense.
And give your running back game as much help as possible. If you've got a dual threat quarterback, it helps your running backs as well. It gives them that little bit more of a dynamic feel to your offense. So in terms of the offensive coordinator is Brad Cornelson. It's his second season. He's highly experienced. He's been an offensive coordinator most years since 2009. He's not really lit it up recently. He had a so-so 5 years at Virginia Tech up until 2021. And then last year, the Sam Houston offense struggled greatly with the step up to the FBS. And they've not exactly gone hard in the portal to try and fix it. So he's going to have to improve it with nearly the same supporting cast. He's got a new QB to start with, but the offensive line, which got zero push in the run game and was good but not dominant in pass protection, that's had zero reinforcements from either the portal or the new recruit class. It relies on development by continuity as the whole line actually does return. And it was raw in a lot of regards last year. The left tackle, Grayson Jackson Smith, and the left guard, Mark Kendrick Beal, they were both first year starters out of JUCO. They were actually teammates at Tyler Community College together, and they ended up together again. The right guard, James Dawn II, was in his first full year as a starter after sort of having a rotation year beforehand. And Orion Irving played both tackle spots as a redshirt freshman, seeing the field properly for the first time after the starting right tackle, Dari Payton, struggled to open the season. The center, Ethan Hagler, is the only true vet on that line. He's a 4 year starter for the Bearcats with over 2,500 snaps to his name. He's a very good player. So much like Florida International 2023 was bad on the offensive line, but there's a reason why. There is a scope for rapid improvement with so much growing pain. Like say, JUCO guys, first time starters, they're bedded in for year two now. And all the depth room has come back as well. So there's actually a lot of guys who are bedded into this system. It gives them more options, more depth. They had two guys who made the CUSA Freshman Team of the Year, Rhett Larson and Orion Irving, both got on there. So they got some good young players who could emerge on this line, but there's been no outside help brought in. The running back room that struggled to get yardage has again seen no reinforcements from the outside, but again, you sort of have to look a little deeper at this. So John Gentry, he's a good dual threat running back. He had 400 yards on the ground, 300 yards in the air. The team is boosted by the return of a healthy Zach Harabacek. He struggled with injury in 2023, but he had a 500-yard season prior to that. They've got depth. Adrian Murtaugh has done well. They've got a couple of redshirt freshmen, DJ McKinney, Landon Brown, hopefully ready to contribute in year two. So maybe not as bad as it looks on paper, but the new quarterback is going to have a lot of weapons to throw at. So Noah Smith, he had a big first season in the FBS for the Bearcats. Slot receiver had nearly 800 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. The outside receiver, Malik Phillips, had over 400 yards as a first-year transfer from the New Mexico Military Institute. And the team also get back their veteran outside receiver, Ife Adeyi, who has over 2,000 receiving yards in his Bearcats career, but he only played 3 weeks last season and then was hit by injury. Most of the depth pieces are back as well. They only lost Alvonte Woodard, and that was to the draft. So a lot of weapons for the quarterback to throw at. Tight end was an issue for the team, especially when it came to run blocking. And that's an issue the team have tried to resolve in the portal. They got a really big capture, actually. They got the big 6'6", 250-pound Fernando Garza III out of the portal from Texas A&M, who could quickly actually develop into one of the team's most dangerous receiving options, as well as giving them a very physical presence to help the run game. They also got Austin Smith from Memphis. He has Power 4 experience with them and Colorado. He's another big unit at 6'5". So they've really gone and bulked out the tight end room to help against the run there. So again, you don't know this year. This is developed by continuity territory. This is hoping that all you guys who've had a rough year one come and do well this year. Let's say with the offensive line, Got two JUCO starters in there, brand new guys. Maybe this is the year we see these guys break out and they do well, but there's not been a lot of help put in here, so it's certainly a gamble.
Yeah, they're sticking with a roster that's got, like, say, a lot of continuity in the offense. That's good and that's bad. Like you say, there's not a lot to come in and spice it up and challenge them. They're banking on the fact that the guys that they knew were good previously, like I say, had injuries, will recapture that form later on in their career. So yeah, it's a gamble, but it could pay off because these guys will know each other. They'll work well. Like you say, there is talent, like I say, in the run game and in the passing game. Like I say, it'll come down to those, like I say, freshman offensive line, like I say, having a good, stellar second year, just improving. The other guys helping. And yeah, like I say, the only real outside reinforcements in tight end room. And I imagine they're probably to help in the run game more than they are receiving. So they've gone out and you can see where they know where the areas for concern are. It's blocking down and a dual threat quarterback. You're going to need some lead blockers. So get some big tight ends and some big receivers to block on the outside, and that should help whichever one wins the starting jobs here. They have to be better on offense this year. It seems impossible that they couldn't be.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And like I say, you're really sort of putting your eggs in the improvement by experience bracket. And again, a lot of times that works. That's just how it is. It just takes a little bit of time to work things out at this level. So offense, we'll see. Defense. So as I mentioned, they lost their defensive coordinator to New Mexico State. They've got a new guy, um, Skylar Cassidy, first season. Say hello to the youngest defensive coordinator in the entire FBS. He is 29 years old. He is 5 years younger than me. So he was formerly defensive coordinator at Abilene Christian in the FCS. So actually, Keeler's team played against Cassidy's Wildcats, and he was impressed with him so much that when the opportunity came up, he's brought him up to the FBS with him. So the Bearcats defense, it was by far the best unit last year. There's still big rooms for improvement. The biggest problem is their sheer lack of production in the backfield. And in fairness, Cassidy's Wildcats team ranked 88th in tackles for loss and 102nd in sacks last year in the FCS. So Cassidy's had similar problems as well with Abilene Christian. The defensive line has had by far the most reinforcements out of the portal to try and rectify this. They bring back some of the team from last year. The hybrid outside linebacker Isia Nixon led the team in sacks. He had 6. He's back. Jevon Leon, he's a sixth-year Bearcat. He's been struggling with injury in recent seasons, but he's a solid pass rusher. He's been an FCS All-American for the Bearcats. So if he can rediscover his form, it'll be big for the team. They return Chris Murran and Breecion Hayes, who were both depth pieces on there, but they need guys to start taking leaps forward this year. Both the interior starters are gone. Akeem Smith, Chris Scott both ran out of eligibility. And this is where the portal comes in. So they've brought in the 6'5", 260-pounder Dylan Frazier from SMU. He saw some limited game time last season. They just got themselves a new nose tackle as well, Marcus Moore from North Texas. He had over 200 snaps last season. The 300-pounder graded elite against the run, which is another problem the Bearcats have had last season. That's filled a need. They've got the near 320-pound three-tech Quincy Wright from Oregon State and the 300-pound Denver Warren from New Mexico State. So not hard to see. They've added a lot of bulk into their trenches to try and sort out their run game issues. They also got an intriguing JUCO prospect, Cordale Pat. He's a hybrid D lineman out of Trinity Valley who's had a lot of success all over the line. So he's another one to watch out for there. The linebacker room, the star linebacker Trevor Williams ran out of eligibility. But the room's got promise. They've got an established starter in Kavian Gator and the linebacker safety hybrid. He's a linebacker safety hybrid. He'll be the focal point of the defense this season. Sincere Jackson had a big end to the season for them. He's an ingrown talent. He showed promise as a starter. Trey Fields has been a long-term rotation piece for the team. And like Sam Houston, Sam Houston, they're another team who like the linebacker safety hybrids. So a lot of guys are going to see snaps in this room, but they've got the established guys in there The secondary saw some losses, as we mentioned. A couple of their starters, DeMarcus Crosby and Kerrick Hobbs, went to New Mexico State following their defensive coordinator. Isaiah Downs was lost out of the safety room as well, but work has been done to sort out both groups here. So in terms of safeties, the starter Caleb Weaver returns. Elias Escobar's a rotation piece. He's fighting for the other starting spot. He's played some good snaps for them. And the portal, as I say, has brought in reinforcements. They brought in the Liberty safety Jalen Jimerson. He saw over 200 snaps in the rotation for the CUSA champions last year. They got the Virginia Tech safety Nyquee Hawkins, who is searching for a starting job as well. So the safety unit, it's got some depth for it. They also returned their other starters in the corner room. David Fisher is the lead guy there. You've got Devion Armstead, Ermon Allen, but they could do with a few more takeaways this year. So obviously they need to try and get a few more out of these guys. For the most part, this is a team, it's looking to grow from within rather than parachuting a ton of transfers. So interesting to see how this natural progression comes on both sides of the ball, but not hard to see here, right? They are bulking up against the run, and you stop that, get more chances for your secondary to get the takeaways that it needs. This is the way they seem to be going.
Yep. Like I said, they could not control the clock because they couldn't stop the run and they didn't get to the quarterback. Two things, if you can't do either of those things, your chances of winning games dramatically drop. If another team's offensive line can manhandle you and, like I say, create holes to run through the game, it doesn't matter how good the secondary is, because by the time they get the tackle, they're 10, 15 yards deep. So yeah, they've got to make life easier for their secondary, and they've got to stop teams being able to run through the middle. Make them go around the outside. Make them have to go around the edges. Like I say, make them work a little bit harder for it. So they've brought in a lot of beef externally. But then the rest, like I say, very few additions. Like I say, they've not lost too many portals, not on the linebacker in the back end. They trust those guys. They just think they need a little bit of help up front, which will, I suppose, create a bit more luck. Maybe they need a few more, like say, tipped balls that come there where they are talented. They're just not getting the opportunities to do it because they're too active in the run game, and that's not where they need to be focusing. So yeah, like I said, they trust these guys, and if the D line improves, all defenses get better when the D line improves because it just creates and opens doors for so many other guys to get things done.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, going to have to wait and see what happens with this unit. But you plug that run, you're going to solve a lot of problems for your team. And how does the schedule fix up for them? So 6 home games, 6 away games, 3 non-cons to start with. Away at Rice, away at UCF, at home to Hawaii. Then you've got a CUSA game at home against New Mexico State to start with. So revenge game against your defensive coordinator. Then you finish your non-cons at home to Texas State. Then you're away at UTEP. Then you have a bye. You're at home to Western Kentucky, away to Florida International, at home to Louisiana Tech. Then you get a bye. Then you finish on the road to Kennesaw State, Jacksonville State, and you're at home to Liberty. I mean, Christ, that's a rough non-con. Rice and UCF, that's coming up against EJ Warner and KJ Jefferson. You got Texas State, who threw for miles last year, Hawaii, who threw for miles last year, despite not being the best team in the world. That's tough to start with. But you got New Mexico State at home, who are in flux. You got Western Kentucky at home. They're a hard team, but you've got them on your own patch. Your away games, FIU, UTEP, Kennesaw State. Like, that's not the most difficult schedule in the world. There are a lot of winnable games on there, depending on how well you start.
Yeah, the non-con games, I think if they lost them all, I don't think they'd be that bothered. Like I said, they're more trying to kind of just bed them in. But in conference, they should expect to be better. And those non-con games will kind of give them a kick up the arse. That bye week will be very important between UTEP and Western Kentucky because that last stretch is where the winnable games are. Texas State, I suppose being at a neutral ground, that kind of change things. A crowd playing on, let's say, a proper NFL pitch, maybe they'll go out there and just kind of let loose a little bit. Like I said, they'd probably, I wouldn't even worry about the score, to be honest. They might go out there and just let's go, let's put on a show. But yeah, it's a rough start. Like I say, that's a bit of traveling. Like I say, go to Florida. It's got Hawaii coming to you. So yeah, the first 6 games, difficult. But like I say, after the bye, by then they probably settled down. I think they'll do. I think they could win 5, 6 games this year, especially out of that second half. Like saying that probably be their definition of a good year compared to last year.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, you're going to give your secondary some tests early on. Like again, EJ Warner, KJ Jefferson. I think Jordan McLeod's the new Texas State quarterback. So that's like that's trial by fire for any secondary going. So, but hey, might breed something big out of them. In terms of the player to watch, mentioned him already. So the tight end Fernando Garza, he's 6'6", 250 pounds. Bearcats lacked beef in the run game, and he is a tall, physical, contested catch guy. He's potential to be a perfect hybrid tight end who's going to inject some juice into the run game, but be a sneaky receiving option on this team as well. He's not been sat around at Texas A&M. He's done a lot of work on special teams on the field goal kick unit. He's been brought in for blocking duties with the main team. He's got several years of eligibility left, so got time to kick on and become a starter here. Big chance for him to see the field right away. And at his size, he's got big mismatch potential. So Fernando Garza will be the team for the guy to watch there for the Sam Houston Bearcats. Right, let's move it on. We've just got 2 teams to go now, and then our preview of the CUSA is done. And we're going to start with another team that has undergone a coaching change. We had none with the first 5 teams. We've got 3 in the second 5. We've got the University of Texas El Paso Miners, established 1914. They play at the Sun Bowl in El Paso, Texas. Rivalries, New Mexico State, the Battle of I-10. We've already discussed that in the New Mexico State preview. In terms of their 2022 record, they went 5-7. They were 3-5 in the CUSA. 2023, they went 3-9. They were just 2-6 in the CUSA. And now the Dana DeMel era is over. 6 years, 20-49 record. I mean, DeMel did take over a ship that had sunk. It was a winless 0-12 season before he arrived. He managed to raise the team so that it could float again. They had a bowl appearance in 2021, but he couldn't get the engine working again to move them towards the top of the CUSA. They've had regression every year since 2021. And I remember doing this preview for the CUSA last year. DeMel was the guy who was most on the hot seat for me. He's just not been acceptable. And you watch the likes of New Mexico State come in to the CUSA, and after 1 year being the championship game at the first time of asking, I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back when it came to DeMel. And so steps up former Austin Peay head coach and Texas native Scotty Walden. He is 34. It's his first season in the job. He is an offensively minded coach. He has got to try and get this ship moving forward. But in doing so, he has taken on one of the most notoriously difficult jobs in the FBS. For those geographically, if you don't know, El Paso, it's secluded far out in the west of Texas, well away from the highly fertile recruiting grounds of the East. And it's hard to make a pitch for a team that has more seasons winning 2 games or less than making a bowl game since the mid-noughties. It's just had no success at all. But Walden, he is a young, dynamic, offensive mind. He completely turned around the Austin Peay Governors, a team that had not registered back-to-back winning seasons since 1983 to 1984. They rattled off 4 in a row under Walden. He's responsible for 2 of the 4 conference championships they've won since 1977, and he's the only head coach in their history to win 2. They're coming off an undefeated season in the UAC. I think it's the United Athletic Conference. Their only undefeated conference season in history. They went to the FCS playoffs for only the 2nd time ever. They were in a 10-point game on the road against Tennessee till the closing minutes. Nearly beat Tennessee last year as an FCS team. He's known for his tempo spread option offense. This is a marriage. It's really interesting. So it's a bit of Mike Leach's air raid and Rich Rodriguez's run spread offense. It's a really intriguing offensive system to watch, but this needed to happen, right? Dana DeMel it could not get UTEP going. Year 6, regressing, needed to be done. Scotty Walden, this might be the most interesting hire of them all. A lot of success with Austin Peay, but this is an even harder job that he's taken on at UTEP.
Yeah, it was right time for Dana to go. I'd say he'd kind of steadied the ship, but it just looked incapable of taking to the next step. So they've gone out there, and I suppose they've got this kind of what young, new, flashy, hip, trendy toy, and I kind of like that direction. Someone's going to bring in something new, bring a little juice to a team that, yeah, in conference has just been like a wet flannel for years. They kind of just, yeah, you look at them and you kind of just chalk it up as a win. A lot of teams look at that, and he's got to change their identity. Like, so they can't be seen as that anymore. So going out and getting someone that is winning games, wants to play offensive football where this team has struggled, I'd say it's fine. And 34, he's under no illusion. He knows this is a long-term project. It could take a couple of years to get them winning, but time's on his side, and they should give him a good amount of time to get the job done. So it makes sense for all parties included, really.
Yeah, it does. And I say he's not averse to taking on hard jobs. That Austin Pay job is not easy, but that Austin Pay team has been very good under him, and it took him time, but he got there with it. In terms of UTEP's draft stuff in 2024, actually they had two players drafted this year. The linebacker Tyrese Knight, I loved him. I wanted the Lions to draft him. He was drafted by Seattle, and the guard Elijah Klein, I think he was the right guard. He was drafted by Tampa Bay. So two draftable products this year. Last time the Lions drafted from UTEP was in 1991. The wide receiver Reggie Barrett. We drafted him at number 58, and he lasted on the team for one season, I believe. We've not picked anyone since then. In terms of 2023, so the results, the first game of the season, they lost to Jacksonville State, first ever FBS game for them, 17-14. They beat Incarnate Wood, but that's FCS opposition, 28-14. Then they lost on the road to Northwestern and Arizona, which is two Power Five teams. Then they lost at home to UNLV and Louisiana Tech. They beat Florida International on the road. They lost at home to New Mexico State. And then they won on the road to Sam Houston. And then they ended the season with losses to Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee, and Liberty. And that's kind of indicative there. One win at home against FCS opposition, and that was it. Your other wins were on the road. In terms of the rankings, so their offense was ranked in total offense 83rd with 362 yards per game, but they were 116th in scoring offense. They scored less than 20 points per game. The total defense was 75th, 386 yards per game given up, and the scoring defense was 85th. They gave up 28.5 points per game. The rushing offense was 83rd, middle of packish, 144 yards per game, 16 touchdowns, but their rushing defense 125th. They gave up over 200 yards per game and 28 touchdowns. The passing offense was 73rd, 217 yards per game and 13 touchdowns. The passing defense was 18th in the nation with 184 yards per game and 16 touchdowns. I will asterisk that with the fact that the run defense was that bad. Teams didn't have to throw at them. So that is a misleading stat right there. In terms of sacks, they were 60th with 26. Tackles for loss, they were 105th with just 57. Sacks allowed, they were 93rd with 30. Tackles for loss allowed, they were 80th with 72. And the turnover margin, they were 111th. They gained 12. They lost 18. I mean, it's just kind of rancid across the board, right? But another team who, at the end of the day, could not defend the run to the point where it kills the clock, it kills your team, your offense isn't good enough to drag you back into the games, and there's just a lot of problems to fix with this UTEP side.
It's getting them out of them ways, them habits, like turnover margin one at worst in nation. If a team don't throw the ball, you can't take it away. They're not going to fumble very often when they're just going to run it down your throat constantly. They're not going to cough it up, so you don't get takeaways. Like I say, if you had to look at time of possession, if your rushing defense is 125th in the nation, there's a good chance you're less than 100th in time of possession. You'll never have the ball because, like you say, they're just going to chew up clock. And by the time you scored, and by the time your offense is that bad, you're probably giving it straight back and averaging less than 20 points contest. That is bad. This new head coach, he's really got his work cut out for him, like you say, because like you say, it's not a good offense. He scores very few points, and his offensive line was mediocre last year, like you say, and he gave away a lot of turnovers. So yeah, there's a lot to think about straight away.
And like they had Gavin Hardison last year. He technically one of the better quarterbacks in the conference. And like because that's what gave him hope. You're like, well, he's flashed. He can be good, but he wasn't. And we'll get into that now. So, in terms of the season preview here, it starts at quarterback, and things got really messy for the Miners last season. So, I mentioned the veteran starter, Gavin Hardison. He struggled badly to start the season, but his season was ended prematurely by elbow surgery before game 6 against Louisiana Tech. And then in the Louisiana Tech game, the second stringer Jake McNamara sustained a concussion in the first half. The third stringer Kevin Hurley sustained a concussion in the fourth quarter when he was getting stacked. So up stepped fourth string Cade McConnell, who took the starting job for the rest of the year. In fairness to him, he threw for 1,500 yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Now, McConnell and Hurley are back, but this is a completely different offensive scheme under the new head coach. So the battle is open amongst 7 quarterbacks, including Skylar Locklear, who was transferred in from Austin Peay with Walden. The others are all from the old roster. So you've got this weird thing. So 6 guys are learning the new scheme, but that's where the starting snaps are. The other guy has played for Walden, but he's adapting to a new school. This is unlikely to be decided for some time, but I guess you would figure that he'd go with his tried and tested quarterback rather than the team's. But UTEP did get hurt badly last year. That Tech game just ruining them of second and third stringers. McConnell did a good job, but it's all over the place, which is indicative of this team.
Yeah, and having a look at the stats, according to Austin Peay's site, Locklear has attempted 7 career passes. So he's brought a QB with him that has got absolutely no experience whatsoever. It would feel like career suicide going with Locklear just because you know him. Like I say, with such a small size, and like I say, already in his third year, you'd have to make McConnell on paper the leader. The fact is, he stayed healthy for a half a season when he was called upon, and he had a positive turnover touchdown interception ratio. I mean, I'm giving him the smallest crumb, like I say, to work with. But like I say, Cade will like to think he can win the job. I don't know what Hurley really offers, but yeah, it's got to be one of them two. The other 5 guys, it just can't be. But that's too many chefs in the kitchen. You should never have a quarterback battle that big. That's not a good thing
No.
because, like I said, that just means you've got more chance of picking the wrong guy, like I say, and then the other guy's leaving the team and you're left in a bad situation. So, yeah, not ideal for a head coach, like I say, who will probably have no idea who his starting quarterback is, or if his starting quarterback will even make it through the first game untouched because their offensive
Yeah.
line wasn't very good.
No, that's it. I would hazard a guess it'll be Cape Cod. There was a really, when I was looking through this, there was a really nice piece written on his local lad. They seem to really like him a lot there. He's loved by the fan base. And when you're a fourth stringer who gets called up, you're not expecting, as a fourth stringer, you are not expecting to see any snaps during the season whatsoever. Like, you are not part of the plans for the team that season. And to be jettisoned in the course of one game and to do so well is very indicative of how good he did. So I would like to think that might be the thing there with him. But anywho, let's move it on. So we're going on to the offense. So we got co-offensive coordinators here: Jake Brown, Ryan Stanchek, both their first seasons. It is not hard to see Walden's plan here, offensive coordinator wise. So Jake Brown has been the co-offensive coordinator and the wide receivers coach at Louisiana Tech the last 2 years. And what scheme does Sonny Cumby run there? The Mike Leach air raid, which is all part of what his thing's about. Ryan Stanchek was his co-offensive coordinator and O-line coach at Austin Peay. He's responsible for the run game. He was actually at Tulsa in 2023. Their rushing offense went from 85th to 35th in the FBS in one season, marrying the air raid with the run. Now, they're going to be working with a lot of new players here. The minors get rated every season in the portal, and this is no different. But you can clearly see the offensive identity here. A pair of really good hires. The running back room, that's been emptied. So the former running back coach, Barrett Neely, found a new job at his alma mater at Texas State after DeMel was fired. He's taken his two leading rushers with him. Deion Hankins had 813 yards. Torrance Burgess Jr. had 625. They've both gone to Texas State with their running back coach. The third stringer, Mike Franklin, is in the portal. This essentially is leaving a bunch of now redshirt freshmen and fullbacks from the old regime. But where the portal takes, the portal gives. And Walden has not come alone from Austin Peay. He's brought his 5'8", 200-pound battering ram with him. Javon Jackson rushed for 1,377 yards last season alone, had 10 touchdowns on the ground, had a receiving touchdown to go with them as well. He'll be in competition with the redshirt freshman Iziel Jolly. He was a three-star recruit from the 2023 class who saw some game time as a true freshman. He's looking to make that starting spot his own. Jackson's not the only Austin Peay running back to come with Walden either. He also bought a redshirt freshman, Marquez Taylor, with him as well. So he knows the system already. And they bought former Florida State kick returner Corey Wren in as well. He's been at TCU, but he's going to be the special teams guy. So there's no return in production from 2023, but this room is actually very well set competitively to hopefully produce some breakout players. The receiver room, the portal has laid absolute waste to it. Their 1,000-yard receiver, Kelly Akarai, transferred to Mississippi State. 600-yard receiver, Jeremiah Ballard, left for Tulsa. Tyron Smith left for Cincinnati. And 4 others are still currently in the portal. But again, the portal has provided reinforcements, and a lot of them have come from Austin Peay. So this contingent includes the slot receiver, Cam Thomas. He had 621 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns, 100 rush yards, and 1 rushing touchdown last season. He's got the versatile inside-outside receiver, Kenny Odom. He had 300 yards and 3 touchdowns last year. You've got the outside receiver, Trey Goodman, who had 725 yards and 7 touchdowns last year. You've got the JUCO transfer, Ashton Nickelberry. He transferred to Austin Peay, and now he's come with Walden as well. And they've also got the Eastern Kentucky slot receiver, Jaden Smith. He had 800 yards and 5 touchdowns last season, 130 yards and 1 touchdown of which came against Austin Peay. So Walden's brought him with him to the big leagues after playing well against him. They will all join the former JUCO product, Imari White, who is the only returner with 100-plus receiving yards last season. The tight end room is in a similar situation. The starter, Zach Fryer, went to the NFL draft. The rotation guy, Elijah Boyd, left in the portal. He's gone to Bowling Green. The only returning guy is Marcus Vinson. He's 6'4", 255 pounds. But outside of that, it's a completely unknown unit. They've got a second-year JUCO transfer, Judah Ezinwa. He'll be looking to try and find a spot on the roster. They've got a few new high school recruits as well. And one of them is actually a very big recruit. He's 6'4", 265 pounds. His name's Martavius Collins. Was actually committed to both Alabama and Auburn at various points of his recruiting process. But for reasons unbeknown, he's chosen to come all the way down to the CUSA. So, I mean, that might be a guy who's seeing snaps as a true freshman. They're big recruit for the team. And also, what a difference 12 months has made for the offensive line. This time last year, they were returning 4 CUSA All-Stars, and they were maybe the best unit in the conference, or they should have been. This year, they've lost every single starter and some of the backups. The left tackle, Stephen Hubbard, went to Vanderbilt. The left guard, Justin Myers, went to Colorado. The center, Andrew Meyer, the right tackle, Zuri Henry, ran out of eligibility. And the right guard, Elijah Klein, was drafted into the NFL. Out of the backups, Aluma Nkele transferred to Minnesota. The offensive tackle, Nick Scalise, transferred to UNLV. Like, this is a major rebuilding project for Walden. But again, he's bought some bricks and mortar with him. He's bought both starting tackles from Austin Peay's O-line who are coming with him. The left tackle, Isaiah Wright, the right tackle, Brennan Smith, who are both likely to start right away. Where on the line remains to be seen, but they're going to start. They got Otis Pitts III, who saw some game time as a right guard last season. He excelled in pass pro, so he may get a bigger shot after deciding to come back to the team. The rest of the line, it's tough to say right now. It's going to be red shirts or freshmen who didn't see the field last year. They've got 5 recruits joining out of high school. And I say they've got a bunch of freshmen from last year. So there's a ton of young guys on the offensive line on this team. But in terms of starters, everything has gone. Right, this is we thought New Mexico State got butchered, but these really got butchered. But he's brought pretty much all his Austin Peay offense with him, which has been so good. So who knows? Might be a good thing. At least scheme wise, they'll all know what they're doing.
Yeah. He's brought an entire receiving core with him and 2 tackles, like you said, then like you say, between tight end and quarterback and rest of the O-line, they're just going to be winging it. But at least some guys, like say, will need less coaching. Like I say, he's brought in, like say, offensive coordinators, marrying air raid and run. It's going to be an interesting spread because, like I say, a lot of big outside receivers, they're going to run a lot of spread. There's going to be a lot of 4-5 receiver sets, and then, like I say, dual running backs. It's going to be chaotic, I think, to say the least. But like I say, bring in some guys. Honestly, if he'd not been able to bring these guys, he'd be screwed, wouldn't it? Because he just wouldn't have an offense because they just would not have replaced any of the guys there. So realistically, he didn't have a choice. Like I say, he must be glad that a lot of them would come with him. And a lot of them last year had lots of production. Like I say, so it even if they have like 60-70% of last year's production now, collectively as a unit, they should be very good. And if the running back, like you say, can just start moving the chains and help that offense expand a little bit and just do the dirty stuff, like I said, that little stocky guy, Javon, then that's probably going to take a lot of pressure off whoever wins the quarterback job. If they can hand the ball off 30 times a game, whether it goes for 10 yards or 100, it will help him in some sense, yeah. Yeah, I'm not expecting massive things, but at least they've got some resemblance of what they want to do. I think he's probably going to have a big say in how their offense is run because he's bringing half a team with him and they're going to look to him for like, just tell us what you want us to do. So yeah, they could. It's going to be chaotic. It's going to be interesting. Like I said, they're going to try to spread out the field. So yeah, it'll look very different. It'll be chalk and cheese from what they ran last year. Whether that's good or bad, we're going to see. But it's certainly going to be one of the units to watch in the whole conference. A brand new offense with 2, like I say, offensive coordinators that could completely clash. Like I said, they may not work and gel. Like I said, those 2 systems usually just do not marry. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they work out.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's maybe a good thing. Like I said, you had a good quarterback and 4 all-star conference linemen last year, and you did nothing. So who knows? Maybe this is what they need to spruce things up. In terms of the defensive side of the ball, so again, he's gone for co-defensive coordinators. So there's no outright guy on both sides. So you got JJ Clark and Kelvin Sigler. And similar to the offense, Walden's he split responsibility between one of his own and an outsider from a very successful system. So JJ Clark was the defensive coordinator slash linebackers coach at Austin Peay. He will have the same job title here, minus the full DC denomination. Kelvin Sigler was a mixture of the assistant head coach, defensive coordinator, and safeties coach at Jacksonville State under Rich Rodriguez. He's now going to be co-DC and safeties coach for UTEP. And that Jacksonville State defense was good, but the defense has not escaped the talent purge either. The D-line has seen significant loss, none more so than the all-time UTEP sack leader, Praise Amawule. After 6 distinguished years as a UTEP minor, he headed for the NFL. They had Canius Vaughn. He had one very successful year with them after moving up from JUCO, but he's moved again. He's gone to the Power 4 with Utah. They do return, however, their sack leader from 2023, Maurice Westmoreland. He plays that bandit role on defense. This team used bandits. He'll look to build on his 7-sack season. They got long-time starting edge Devin Gorey out the portal from soon-to-be CUSA team Missouri State. So they got themselves a starter there. They got rotational guy Hunter Rapola from New Mexico, but there's not a lot of experience outside of them. So again, we're going to be seeing red shirts, the high school recruiting class stepping up to fill in the gaps here. In terms of the interior, the leading defensive tackle Keenan Stewart ran out of eligibility. The nose tackle Sione Tonga and the defensive tackle KD Johnson were the rotational parts last year. They both come back. They've been joined by Quinzavius Warren out of the portal from Jacksonville State. And they got other rotational guys from 2023 as well. So there's a plethora of new options to find starters from the rotation and from outside. But whoever it is, they've got to stop the bleeding against the run. 200 plus yards a game against the run is going to kill any team. The linebacker room, that's taken a massive hit. They've lost both their starters. So, like I mentioned, Tyrese Knight was drafted into the NFL and James Neal transferred to Texas State. Overall, 6 of the 9 linebackers on the roster last year are gone, and the remaining 3 played primarily on special teams. So they've gone to the portal for this. They managed to get the true freshman Dylan Brown Turner out of the portal from Florida State. He was a 3-star recruit just 12 months ago, so he's going to be a redshirt freshman. Might see something with him. Dorian Hopkins, he's a hybrid inside-outside linebacker from Tulsa. He had nearly 300 snaps for the Hurricanes last year. They've got the Gardner-Webb Spur linebacker Trey Dunson, another player who impressed playing against Walden's Austin Peay team last year. So it's not just his own players he's bought, but players who've played well against him in the FCS as well. In terms of the incumbents there, Nate Diamond is the one to watch. He had 4 starts last year before the team decided to preserve his red shirt. So, yeah, the 2 starters stayed healthy all year, and they play a 2 linebacker system. So there's not a lot of starting reps returning there. The secondary is the most intact part of this defense. But don't let the high passing grade screw things, as I said. Like, they just weren't thrown on very often. They were good, but they weren't top 20 nationally. They returned 2 of their 3 starters at corner, AJ Odoms and their nickelback Josiah Allen. That's a very solid foundation to build on. They got Amir Boyd Matthews, who had a lot of snaps last year. He's potential to be a starter right away. Walden's also added depth to the room. He bought his do-it-all slot corner Corey Chapman with him from Austin Peay. He's as versatile as they come. He's played 500 snaps in the box, 400 at free safety, 700 at slot corner. So another tried and tested player of his. They got Yesman Green from Jacksonville State. He had 600 snaps last year. In terms of safeties, more losses. Their starter Kobe Hilton transferred to Oklahoma State in the Power 4. They lost Mikael Broussard to Eastern Washington. They lost Trajan Hugh to eligibility issues. They return Oscar Moore. He was the only player on the team to get more than 1 interception last year. He had 2. But outside of him, they've gone to the portal again for a lot of help. Another Austin Peay starter, Xavier Smith. He's another do-it-all secondary player. He's arrived. They've dropped down into JUCO as well. They got Michael Ray Jr. from Tyler College, had a very productive stint there. More recently, they picked up former 3-star commitment Landon Hullaby from Texas Tech. He's had injury problems there, so not been a talent issue. But if he's healthy, he'll be in contention for a starting job. As is the same story with Jimmy Wyrick from Stanford. Injury issues, but he's another former 3-star with a lot of potential and years left on his eligibility roster. This has the potential to be a very exciting room for UTEP if they can stay healthy and they can stop the run, get QBs throwing at them in that secondary there. But overall, again, massive amount of turnover for Walden to deal with year 1, but means he gets to put more of his own guys in early, right? He's bought in every single unit of this team. He's bought guys with him from Austin Peay, and that seems to be the way he's going to do it.
Yeah, he's going to live and die by the sword. If he's going to do it, they're going to do it together, or they're going to fail together. And yeah, He'll know what he's bringing with him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought him with him. Stop the run. Like I say, a secondary, like I say, collectively didn't get any turnovers because they were too busy having to tackle and come into the run and support. Like I say, and that's not what anyone would be doing. So yeah, stack the middle, like I say, stop the run, slow offenses down, give their defense a little bit of time to, like I say, not get caught on its heels, catch its breath. But yeah, I can see that being a very quick fix because that is it. It's pretty uncomplicated what they need to do. Get better, like I say, get a run, better at getting penetrating holes, making tackles for losses, and that 125th, like I say, ranked rush defense, like I say, if that becomes a top 100 defense, like I say, even like say just 20, 30 places, you'd be surprised how many extra games he could win. It's those kind of small margins usually that make a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So again,
I've
this
just seen
is
their schedule and now I'm not confident. That's the worst road schedule I've seen in the whole conference. That's brutal.
and they're actually weirdly the only team who's not split 6 and 6 between home and away. So they've only got
They've
five.
been rinsed.
They've got 5 home games and 7 away games. So they've got 3 on the road before they bye. So they're away at Nebraska, they're at home to Southern Utah, but then they're away at Liberty, they're away at Colorado State, they hit the bye, then you're at home to Sam Houston, you're away to Western Kentucky, at home to FIU, away to Louisiana Tech, at home to Middle Tennessee and Kennesaw State. You get a bye, but then you're away to Tennessee in the SEC and you're away to New Mexico State. I mean, that's brutal. Liberty and New Mexico State 1 and 2 last year. Western Kentucky fourth in the conference. Like, Jesus, that it's rough, isn't it? This is trial by fire for them this year. 5 home games. I know it's the non-cons messed it out. It's 3 or 4 away in the non-con. It's still split in conference, but that's still not easy.
Yeah, they could lose all the road games. Realistically, you look at them and like you're looking like New Mexico, LA Tech, maybe New Mexico State's never easy. Like you said, there could be one road win. They're going to have to sweep up at home.
Yeah,
I look at the home games and I think all very winnable.
yeah.
That's where you have to get it done. Like I say, because the away schedule is going to be rough. But yeah, it's not what you want to see for a team, like say, with a lot of question marks, a lot of crucial positions, a lot of traveling. Like I say, it's going to be a pretty rough first season, but probably to be expected.
It'd be very telling by the bye. 3 away games. You're probably going to lose those. You got Southern Utah. You got a tune-up game. See how you do there. But like that could be a tough one for them, Southern Utah, with all this turnover. Who knows? So yeah, I'm agree with you. They've got to win the home ones. Sam Houston, Florida International, Middle Tennessee, Kennesaw State, the new boys. Like, there's your wins. That's where your wins are going to come from. Maybe you might sneak one on the road, but you've got to sweep at home. In terms of the player to watch, I've got the edge, Maurice Westmoreland. Mentioned him already. He's 6'2", 235 pounds. Like, he's got a critical role to play for this team this year. He's the sack guy, and he's the one who's filling the shoes of Praise Amawule, the UTEP legend. He's going to garner a lot more attention without Praise being on this team now. Opposition offensive coordinators are going to look to keep him quiet and stop him making an impact. If he can be as effective rushing the passer this season, improve on his 2023, that's going to make life so much easier for the rest of this defense. And you will hear his name a lot. So Maurice Westmoreland is the guy to watch there. And we're going to finish it off. We're on to our last team on our stop in the CUSA. We've got the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, established 1908. They play at the Hutchins Industries L.T. Smith Stadium in Bowling Green, Kentucky. In terms of the rivalries, 3 predominant ones, 1 active, 2 inactive. The active one is the 100 Miles of Hate with Middle Tennessee State that we've already mentioned. The 2 inactive rivalries are the Battle for the Red Belt with Murray State and the Battle of the Bluegrass with Eastern Kentucky. However, this coming season, the Bluegrass will be fought over for the first time since 2017. Eastern Kentucky will be playing Western Kentucky. In terms of their records, 2022, they were 9-5. They were 6-2 in the CUSA. In 2023, they're 8-5. They were 5-3 in the CUSA. Their coach is Tyson Helton. He is 46. This is his 6th season. He is an offensively minded coach. He's brother of the Georgia Southern head coach, Clay Hilton, also the mastermind behind that famous Bailey Zappi offense of 2021 that had over 7,500 yards of offense. Helton's enjoyed a really healthy 5-year tenure up to now. He's 40 and 26 overall. He's 28 and 11 in the CUSA, despite him having to rebuild the team from scratch in that post-Zappi era when they lost everybody. And this all comes on the back of it's fierce air raid offense. He says it's not an air raid, but it is an air raid in principle. I mean, like, who's he kidding that it's not? Western Kentucky has been to a bowl game every year under him. They've won 4 of the 5 contests. So it's safe to say things have been good under Helton. However, a concerning little trend is emerging. So since 2021, when they won the CUSA East, back when they had conferences in the CUSA, their in-conference record has gone from 7-1 in 2021 to 6-2 in 2022, and then 5-3 in 2023, which, you know, that was after the departure of UTSA, who've been running the conference. They finished 4th behind Jacksonville State last year, but now this is nitpicky, but that's very slight regression every year. It needs to be monitored and ideally reversed this season before questions start getting asked. And the biggest indictment, the 5 losses over the last 2 seasons are against all the teams who finished above them. So, yeah, right? In terms of guys who have got a good resume in the conference, Tyson Helton is one of the better ones. This Western Kentucky team under him has been very good, very consistent across the board. But as I just mentioned there, that's a slight concern. That is concern to monitor. They need to reverse this trend this year, because if they take another notch down, like, you're gonna be in a bit of bother.
I think he's under a lot of pressure. And I'm going to say this, and I mean no offense, Western Kentucky only beat bad teams. Like I said, all the losses are above them. Whenever it's like, say, it's an important game, or like, say, that there's like potential championship like credentials at stake, they shit the bed, they don't turn up. Like I said, and an air raid offense, I've said it for one time and again, it is so outdated. We see teams persist with it, and it continues to struggle for many of them going forward because it's so one-dimensional. It's not built to come from behind and a team that can stop the pass. You've got no offense. So he says it's not air raid. We know it's air raid because we've literally watched them.
It clearly is, isn't it?
We've seen them pass for 600 yards and score 40 points multiple weeks a season. Like I say, because they just want to like go 4 verts, which is just 4 vertical routes. That's air raid. It's plan A with not much plan B. And yeah, they're under pressure this year. Like I said, they're regressing in the conference. The conference is getting better. And unfortunately, it doesn't matter how good your win-loss record is. If it's not good in conference, you get fired. And we've seen a lot of coaches up, like I say, look at Northwestern. Like I said 2 years ago, when they fired Pat, loads of wins, crap in the Big Ten, and it cost him his job. It happens to the best of them.
Yeah, and like, because we said last year when UTSA left, they should have been one of the teams who stepped up into that breach. Like, they were all new, FCS transfers, you know, independents coming in. You expected them to take that step back up, and they've been blessed with quarterbacks. Bailey Zapp left, well, they've had Austin Reed for the last few years. Like, they don't miss the beat. And not air raid. Well, we're going to go through the stats in a minute, and we're going to bust that myth completely. In terms of their 2023 results, in fact, no, actually, draft stuff first. They did have a player drafted in 2024, the Yak Master himself, Malachi Corley, drafted by the Jets, hoping to have Aaron Rodgers thrown to him, but he's too busy doing drugs on the other side of the globe, apparently, to turn up to Jets practice. In terms of the last Western Kentucky player the Lions drafted, I'm not going to insult you by asking you that because we did it 12 months ago. Broderick Martin, 2023. Lions drafted him. Yeah, so 2023, the results. 2 wins to start off with. At home to a very good USF team, actually. Golesh and the Bulls, 41-24. They beat Houston Christian as well. Then they got twonked in the shoe at Ohio State, 63-10. They lost on the road to Troy, 27-24. Then they won at home to Middle Tennessee State and away at Louisiana Tech. Then they lost away at Jacksonville State versus Liberty. They won away at UTEP. Then they lost at home to New Mexico State. Then they won 3 to end the season at home to Sam Houston, away to Florida International, and actually the best bowl game of the entire offseason against Old Dominion, the famous Toastery Bowl, 38-35, like hands down best bowl game of the offseason completely. And I put it in my notes here. 5 teams have finished above them in the last 2 seasons. They lost the games against all 5 of those 2 teams. They lost to Troy as well, Sunbelt champions, like Ryan says. When the chips are down, they are not. In terms of the rankings, total offense, they were 51st, 401.8 yards per game. The scoring offense a little better, 45th, 30.5 points per game. Their total defense, 108th, 420 yards per game given up. Scoring defense was a little better. They were 90th. They give up nearly 29 points per game. In terms of the offense, Mr. I don't play air raid, rushing offense ranked 117th, 105 yards per game and 12 touchdowns. Passing offense ranked 15th, 300 yards per game and 38 touchdowns. The Russian defense, though, that was 120th, another bad one, 190 yards per game and 24 touchdowns. The passing defense was 76th, 230 yards per game, 20 touchdowns. Defense not particularly good. Sacks, they were 86th with just 24. Tackles for loss, they were 117th with just 57. However, sacks allowed, they were 9th in the nation, just 13 given up. Tackles for loss allowed, they were 23rd with just 58 given up. So offensive line did a very good job. Turnover margin, they were 38th, but get this.
That's misleading.
Yeah, they had 26 turnovers gained, but they turned it over 23 times as well. So it's done on a per game basis. They work it out on average per game. So, but anywho, not an air raid, Ryan. 100. It's like literally 100 positions difference between the running and the passing. You tell me that's not air raid, but the defense as well. That's just awful.
Yeah, this is one of those, like I say, the stats. It's worrying trends. Like I say, it's great passing for 400 yards a game, and you only give up 13 sacks because you only throw the ball. They can't get to the quarterback because within 1.5 seconds it's out of his hands. But if you, like I say, they played, like say, a ball game, but if you're saying 1.7 turnovers a game, like expected, that's bad. Like I say, and it says it takes one good passing defense or one good defense like Troy to stop the passing offense. They don't stand a chance. You look at them, they conceded quite a lot of points even when they won, like I say, and they were held to minimal, like I say, in the losses. So yeah, it's not a good recipe for winning football games, especially unless you're really, really, really good at it. And they were really, really, really good at it. They were, but we're about to talk about they might not be very good at this anymore because they've lost the guys that knew how to command it. Only certain quarterbacks can run an air raid offense. A big arm, and you need a release literally within like under 1.5 seconds. You cannot hold the ball any longer than that because, like I say, they need quick releases here. So yeah, they're gonna have to change. Like I said, they're gonna have to. They were lucky that they got so many turnovers, but that's not a good number to get away. So yeah, the stats, they don't tell a story about an offense that is very one-dimensional, to say the least.
Yeah, but it's not air raid, so you can't. Sorry, I've got to stop doing that now. But yeah, they love to pass the ball. That is their thing. But again, yeah, you've got to start beating the good teams. Got to beat the teams who finish above you. Like, it's no coincidence that over the last 2 years, 5 teams that have beaten you in conference have finished above you. Like, you've got to win those. In terms of how 2024 looks for them, the season preview, the quarterback room. So this is undecided, but I'm very heated on this as I've gone through. So their former starter Austin Reed went to the NFL draft. He went crazy last season, had over 30 touchdown throws. This year, it's a three-way battle to replace him. And why I get mad here, Western Kentucky got Texas State starting quarterback TJ Finley out of the portal. He set a Texas State passing record last year with 3,288 yards combined with 24 touchdowns to just 8 interceptions. That's amazing, right? But the Bobcats, they got the Arizona quarterback Jaden Delora out of the portal. So instead of staying and fighting for his job, he ran off into the portal. He's now on his fourth team since 2020. Like, man, it's stay and fight for your job. Don't run off to another pass-heavy team who need a starter so you can pad your stats. Sorry, but I'm going to have my rant there on TJ Finley. Competing with him, though, Western Kentucky's two freshman signal callers of famous Toastery Bowl fame. So, most important, Turner Helton, he had a nightmare stepping in for Austin Reed in that game. He had a pick six. He had a giveaway fumble. Old Dominion built up a massive lead. He got pulled from the game. But then the legend of Caden Veltkamp was born, and I thought he'd be the starter this year. Taking his first ever snaps in college, he went 40 of 52, which is 77% passing completion, for 380 yards, 5 touchdowns, and just 1 interception. And he added 76 yards on the ground as well to lead one of the most famous bowl comebacks in recent years. He's 6'6", 235 pounds, but right at home in Helton's air raid offense, and he would want the starting job this year, and he should get the starting job this year. But bias aside, this is a very competitive room, which is going to produce a good level starter. But I don't know if you feel like I do, right? But TJ Finley has been terrible. He's jumped from team to team to team. JG Kinney gives him a chance. He performs right well, and then he scurries off when Jaden Delaro arrives. Like, well, Noah Fafita beat him out. Why can't you bid? That's your house, that's your job, and you've done a runner. Like, coward.
Yeah, I remember TJ Finley. That there was so much promise at Auburn, and yeah, it fizzled out quickly, and he scampered away. And yeah, he was very good at Texas State, and like I said, Jane Delora is. We know he can be an elite quarterback, like you say, so that would have probably made him most interesting with him. Will TJ Finley, will Texas State's loss be this team's gain? I suppose, but we don't know which TJ Finley we get. If we get the Texas State TJ Finley here, they're going to win they're winning the conference. They're winning it all. Like I say, because he will stand and he will deliver all day. But TJ Finley, like I say, is like a Jekyll and Hyde. You don't know which one you're going to get. Or do you go with, like I said, the Veltkamp that's got no bad habits, no mileage, but a very productive small sample size? Very interesting. You've got the new kid on the block, and you've got the guy that has been there, done it, got lots of t-shirts, had one good year in his career. I can see TJ starting out and maybe a losing job later down the line. But if TJ's finally turned a corner, he could come into this offense and he may just blow up. And then they're all like, oh, TJ's back.
That's what I mean, though. He's come to an air raid offense where he can pad his stats again. It's like, for me, it says a lot about a quarterback. He's not willing to fight for a job. And like JG Kinney plays it's not air raid, but he plays a very good passing game. Like, you will stat pad under him a lot, but it just feels like he wants to come here, throw for 4,000 or 5,000 yards and be like, I'm the best QB of all time and look at me. I don't like it. And after what Caden Veltkamp did last year, honestly, like Old Dominion were absolutely mauling them to death in that game. And he came in and just changed it around completely. You like to see the story like that. I would like to think Caden Veltkamp will win that, but TJ Finley will probably get it. So, bias aside, it's a very good quarterback. Western Kentucky, well set this year. So, how do things look for the rest of the team in terms of the offense? They got co-offensive coordinators. Drew Hollingshead, this is his second season, and Will Friend, this is his first season. So he's made a change at the top. Hollingshead was the outright offensive coordinator last season, but this year he's going to be sharing the duties as well as continuing to coach the quarterback. Will Friend has worked with Helton in the past at Tennessee. He's a highly experienced offensive line coach who has developed a plethora of draft picks for the NFL. And one figures this move comes to try and inject life into the run game so Western Kentucky can get away from their air raid heavy scheme, because it's usually their downfall. When they can't pass it, there's no run game to fall back on. So they've got an O-line specialist as a co-OC now, but they do have the luxury of being a team returning far more production than any of its rivals at the top. And they had 14 players on the 26-man CUSA freshman team of the year, like more than half on just this one team. So they got a lot of young talent to play with as well. On the offensive line, there were some losses. The starting center, Vincent Murphy, he went to Tulane to replace Sincere Hainsworth. The right tackle, Wes Dorsey, left for UCF. But they do return the left tackle, Marshall Jackson, the left guard, Quantavius Leslie, and the right guard, Wesley Horton, on a line that did shine in pass protection. They picked up some good help in the portal. They actually got Troy's starting left guard, Blake Austin, who's also played some center as well. And they got Louisiana Monroe's starting left tackle, Stacey Wilkins, although the two did grade out at 52 and 44 last year. So the starters, but not particularly great ones at this moment in time. But they've got some good young talent in their own ranks. You've got Evan Wibberley, who saw time at center. He made the CUSA Freshman of the Year team. So now, with Friend on this team, coaching them, this unit has the potential and experience to be one of the top units in the conference if they can just get that run game going. And in terms of the running backs they are blocking for, Elijah Young returns as the team's leading rusher. He had nearly 500 yards, but he's a dual threat. He had 250 in the air as well. They've got LT Sanders and Corey Landers as well on their own roster. They've gone to the portal for help. They got Jalen Hampton. He's rushed for 2,000 yards over the last 2 years with Elon, who I think are an Ivy League team. He makes the step up to the FBS. And they got George Hart III, who comes in from running back University, Arizona State, to up the competition. But they do really need someone to break out in the biggest of ways this year. They want a 1,000-yard rusher, but they've at least got the parts to have an effective committee system at worst. The receiver room didn't see much turnover. It did lose its big weapon, the Yak Master Malachi Corley. He's now going to be in the NFL receiving passes from Aaron Rodgers, but they have a 500-yard plus receiver in Dalvin Smith. He was the one who made two unreal grabs in that Toastery Bowl game. There were two one-handed grabs, some of the best catches I've ever seen. He's backed up by a trio of freshmen who all saw the field last year. You've got the slot receiver, Easton Messer, had nearly 500 yards and 4 touchdowns. KD Hutchinson had over 200 with 2 touchdowns. The outside receiver, Musa Berry, had 150 and a score, and they were just all freshmen, so got to figure they're going to get better. And they've added even more weapons from the portal. They got the outside receiver, Keyshawn Johnson. He had 820 yards and 7 touchdowns for Alabama State last season. And they got Bryce Childress, who had playing time for New Mexico State. So the new quarterback, he's not short of weapons to throw at. And in addition to all the receivers he's going to have, they've got River Helms at tight end. He's 6'4", 242 pounds, had over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns last year. They are going to need some more bulk to help with the run game, though. They've got another freshman of the year candidate in there, 6'5", 230-pound Noah Myers. He's going into year 2. He's going to be the blocking tight end this year. We'll look to make further strides. They do have a blocking specialist with Trevor Borland as well. And they got some JUCO transfers in. They got Notre Dame College tight end, CJ Kiss. He's another receiving threat as well. He's coming off an injury that's from his 2023, but former JUCO star before that. Like, it seems every team we've talked about loss. Here, like, again, 14 guys who were in the freshman team of the year for the CUSA. A lot of guys who are only just going to get better. This, for all intents and purposes, is an offense that is ready to go, even if it could just find one good running back.
Yeah, the talent's here. This is going to come down to coaching. Will the offensive coordinator, Hollingshead, be okay sharing responsibilities? Is he going to take on board what the guy that's been brought in to basically fix everything that's broken with his offense? Is it going to help him? Like I say, brought in guys, plenty of weapons. So yeah, on paper, this should be the best offense potentially in the conference. It's just going to be coaching, and it's going to be how they adapt to agreeing to run the ball more. If you can run it more effective, will it mean they pass more? Will it mean they pass less? Yes. Will it mean they have a chance of winning more games and being more competitive when plan A goes out the window? Yes. Yeah. It offers a lot of hope, and it all comes down to the offensive line and how they block. Right, so because they know they can get that hands out the ball out of the quarterback's hands in no time. Can they pass block, and can they run rep? Can they actually operate a good blocking scheme for running backs? If they do all those things, there's nothing to stop them winning the CUSA apart from themselves. It'll be themselves that stop it by not executing properly.
Yeah, and Liberty, they might try. But anyhow, on the defensive side of the ball, this is the unit that needs work. The defensive coordinator is Tyson Summers. It's his third season. He has kept his job. He's going into year 3. He's got something to prove. His defense regressed fairly noticeably in year 2. And like a few of these other CUSA teams, the defensive line is the source of the headache. Stopping the run and getting after the quarterback are big issues that need addressing, and it just creates problems all throughout the defense if you can't do those. They had losses on edge. Nico Cooper, Keontae Davis graduated. They lost Jaquez Evans to Baylor. The edge linebacker hybrid, Sebastian Benjamin, is the only player returning with 20 or more quarterback pressures last year. And that was bang on 20. That's like how little they've been getting. He is joined by one of Western Kentucky's many CUSA all-freshman team, Deontay McCray. He impressed in his nearly 500 snaps last season. Looks a very good prospect on the edge there. They've been in the portal as well. They've raided the edge factory of Troy. They got Zach Edwards from Troy. He's been sat behind Richard Gibonor and Javon Solomon, who were both drafted last year. There's some rotation guys in there. Marcus Patterson, Keelan Guidry. But again, one of these guys really needs to make a step up this year. They've got to get that sack count going up. The interior returns a load of snaps, but again, it needs to be better. So you've got Hosea Wheeler. He had 453 snaps. Jaden Lovin, 392. Terrian Thompson, 361. All back. They got Jaleel Rivera Harvey from Marshall out of the portal. He had 300 snaps last year. And amongst other things, his speciality is the run game. And for a DT, he had a very rare thing. He had a 0% missed tackle rate last year. They've got a good number of high school recruits coming in as well on the defensive line. They're looking to stock up on their depth, but on the interior, they need new names. Like, you can't give up nearly 200 yards a game in the run. You've got to somehow stop that. Rivera Harvey will stop the bleeding a bit, but they've got to have some young guys break out there for sure. The linebacker core took some hits. The lead guy, Desmond Baker, transferred away to Southern Miss after having his best season ever. And Aaron Key transferred to UConn. He saw over 400 snaps. There's a clutch of rotational guys are back, but again, it's a unit that needs serious improvement on the year. And Helton has gone to try and address it in the portal, but he's gone down the pyramid this time. So they got Alcorn State's star linebacker, Terriance Ellis, out of the portal. He's another elite run defender. He's a tackling machine, racked up nearly 100 last year. Also plays on the edge a bit as well. He had 6 sacks and a forced fumble and an interception last year. So the HBCU star does a little bit of everything. And then they went even further down the tree. They got the tackling machine Chandler Matthews from the Limestone Saints, which are a Division II team, I believe, but they've put big emphasis on finding run stuffers who can tackle well to help the defensive line out in the linebacker room. So these small school guys, they're going to get the chance to compete to start right away. Safety's the unit that's been hit the hardest. They lost their star safety slash all-round defender, Kendrick Simpkins. He transferred to Baylor. He had 9 sacks and 4 forced fumbles last year as a safety, but plays on the edge a bit as well. Their other starting safety, Talik Allen, is in the transfer portal, as is the heavy rotation guy, TJ Springer. Takulve Williams went to the NFL draft. So a lot of losses there. They did get a big addition in the portal, though. They got starting Troy safety Keyshawn Swanson and they got the freshman Jai Eugenie Jr. from Tulane to help start rebuilding that room out. The corner room, however, is loaded. And by loaded, I mean loaded. Their star, Anthony Johnson Jr., is back. He had a 4 interception season last year. He gave up just 23 receptions on 48 targets. They got Virgil Marshall and Upton Stout. They both took starter level reps last year. They combined for a few picks and 7 pass breakups. Lost a couple of guys to the NFL draft, but then they went to the portal. They got DeMarco Williams from Ole Miss. He's seen a few hundred snaps in the SEC last season for them. They got Kent Robinson, who had snaps for Texas A&M in the SEC last season. So this is a very healthy room. Emerging young players, guys who've seen time in the SEC, and veteran starters. And, some of them might be able to help out at safety as well. So compared to the rivals, this Hilltopper teams, they have suffered some turnover, but nowhere near the levels of the others. And where they've lost guys, they probably won't mind that because it's on the defense, which needs to get better, right? But they do have some playmakers. If this defense just notches itself up 10, 20 places, that'll be the few wins they need to get to the top.
Yeah, very opportunist defense. Like I say, got a lot of takeaways last year. Secondary, frankly, that actually should worry and fear most other quarterbacks in the conference. They can take the ball away those corners. Like I say, they've brought in some safety help. It's not a team you want to throw the ball on, but it's a team they need to make them throw the ball at. Stopping the run, number one priority, is what they must do. Cannot give up 190 yards rushing a game. That is pitiful. And it will be why they lose games. They've got to make teams start to respect them in the trenches. And if they make that and then they make them throw at them more, they will then shift that turnover margin more further in their favour. Like I say, because they've proved they can take the ball away. But what good is takeaways if you're just letting teams run right through you? Like I say, so yeah, that is the number one priority. It's trench warfare. It's the linebackers and the safeties and that, yeah. They've got to stem that bleed. They do that, and the offense will take care of itself.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, you can see what they're trying to do. Just guys who will tackle for days, especially against the run. You stop the bleed there, you help out all over your defense. You give that secondary an opportunity then if teams cannot run on you to get more takeaways and to get that turnover margin in your favor. In terms of the schedule, I mean, the schedule, it sets up fairly nicely for them. So 6 home, 6 away. The away, I mean, the non-cons of it, they start away at Alabama. So first ever opponent for Caleb DeBoer at Alabama. They go to Tuscaloosa there. Then they're at home to Eastern Kentucky in the Battle of the Bluegrass, which is not going to be easy. They're away at Middle Tennessee State, which is their first COSA game on the road. That'll be interesting for them there. Then they're at home to Toledo and away to Boston College to round out the non-cons. So we've got 2 big road games in the non-con. Then they get a bye. They're at home to UTEP. They're away to Sam Houston. Then they get another bye. Then they're at home to Kennesaw State. They're away to New Mexico State. At home to Louisiana Tech. Away at Liberty. And then at home to Jacksonville State. I mean, this sets nicely. At home, UTEP, Kennesaw State, Louisiana Tech, low-hanging fruit. You should beat Jacksonville State. You should probably beat them as well. This is where the road section comes in. You play Middle Tennessee early. You should win that. But Sam Houston, New Mexico State, Liberty, that's going to be the make or break of their season. Got to start winning those road games against the teams that are going to be up there with them.
Yeah, those games, like I say, between Middle Tennessee State and Louisiana Tech for Liberty will probably define the season. Like I say, you can write off Alabama. Like I say, they need to go into that Liberty game with everything still to play for. They've got to be in the conference title race going into Liberty, because if they're not, that is not a place you want to go to where you have to win. Let's say, especially when, like I say, everyone now is firing on full cylinders. Like I said, that'll probably be the circle game. That's the make or break. Like I say, New Mexico, Sam Houston should be better this year. At BC, all difficult. But the home games, I'm fairly comfortably they could win all of them if they so choose, if they so wish they could. Like I said, Toledo, great, but yeah, they could. If they let Toledo come to them, they should be kind of winning that game.
You would expect them to. Like That last 2 weeks is big. You're away at Liberty. You've got to win that, really, if you want to win the CUSA. But then you've got Jacksonville State at home, team who runs the ball down your throat all the time. That just smacks. Like, they could beat Liberty and then they could lose to Jacksonville State. That's how tough that is. So they've got to be well in it there. But again, it sets up so that by the end of the year, they should hopefully be undefeated in conference and they can go in and get that. So the player to watch here, I've mentioned him already once briefly, the wide receiver, Easton Messer. He's 5'9", he's 195 pounds. With Malachi Corley gone, that Yak Master title is open for grabs. And about 50% of his near 500 yards last year came after the catch. He's very clearly been primed as Corley's successor. He's primed and ready to go for his sophomore season. He's going to have a good QB thrown in his direction. Plenty of rebuilding secondaries to feast on in the CUSA. And he's also going to get some primetime love. He's going to be against Alabama and Boston College, both teams that produce very good DBs at the Power 4 level. So he's going to have the chance to jump off the page and make a name for himself pretty early this year. So Easton Messer, he's the name you want to watch out for in this Western Kentucky offense. And with that, we are done. All 10 teams for the CUSA previewed as accurately as physically possible for this upcoming year. And, you know, we will do our prediction show as we did for the first time last year again, sort of before the season this year. So we'll save the big predictions for them. But we've gone through everyone, right? Obviously, Liberty are the kings here. This is their house. This is, you know, someone's got to go to their porch, stand up to them and try and take this away from them. How do you sort of see the CUSA really sort of fizzling? Who's the next level of contenders to Liberty this year? Who do you really expect to give them a run for their money this year?
I think Western Kentucky are probably, with their quarterback room and the weapons they've got and coaches that are already in our system, I'd say they're the biggest threat. I'd say there's some outsiders, like you say, if who was the quarterback that we saw we talked about last week, Jack Turner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who was the backup for?
Hang on, who are we? Let me just quickly. So we've got Florida International, Jacksonville State, Kennesaw State, Liberty, Louisiana Tech. Is it Louisiana Tech? Was it Louisiana Tech?
LA Tech.
Yeah, it was LA Tech.
Yeah, I feel like I say he saw time last year, like say when Hank was fanning about doing whatever. I feel like they've still got a good, strong air raid offense. I feel like they could make a comeback this year, maybe LA Tech, because like all the bad eggs that were there last year, they're all gone. Like saying the things, so yeah, I think they can make a comeback here. But on paper, I'm going Liberty Western Kentucky Championship.
Yeah, it feels like that's what it should be this year. Like it's turnover more than anything. Western Kentucky have had the least turnover, so you kind of know what you're going to get with them. The rest of these teams, it's like in New Mexico State's case, you know, in UTEP's case, it's just vast. You don't know what you're going to get with them. I mean, I'm with you. I think Western Kentucky they're the main rivals as of now. If I'm looking through the rest, like New Mexico State have had too much turnover. Jacksonville State, I fancy them to still do well. I'm converted by them now. If they can get some more running backs in that room, because that running back depth chart's low, but and then I'm going to give some love to FIU. I think FIU will make a bowl game under Michael McIntyre this year. I've got a little thing for them in the conference this year, so that's what I'm feeling. So, but we'll do some bigger predictions for that closer the time. But I don't know. I think overall we're going to learn a lot this year. Obviously, Kennesaw State. How do you feel Kennesaw State are going to do overall? Like they're the newbies. You know, we have one team do well last. No, we know.
They will not take to life quickly. They won't do a double thing. Sam Houston. I think Sam Houston will make a bowl game. I think they'll have a big jump from year to year too.
There we go then. So maybe Sam Houston, FIU getting some love there. Right, as I say, that is everything for today. So first conference down, CUSA done. Probably will be moving on to the Sun Belt next. We like to do Sun Belt football. We had a few requests for that as well, so we will be doing that in due course. In terms of next episodes, main Royal Lines UK podcast will be back next Monday. I can't remember what we're doing, but it'll be fun, whatever. So great. And then, of course, me and Ryan will be back next week. I don't know if we will do the Sunbelt yet because Ryan's going to be in Japan in 2 weeks. So I don't want to start a two-parter off without him because I'll not be able to do the second week. So we may mix it up and do something a little different next week. We'll see with that. But anywho, we'll be back as always. If you've got anything college football related you want us to go through, position groups, players, etc., let us know. We're going to go through a lot of it in this off season anyhow. We're going to go through all the conferences, do all that good sort of stuff. Any conversations you want us to have, then just let us know, and we shall sort that for you. Ryan, is there anything else you kind of want to say, USA related, anything related this week, or you all good?
Yeah, I think the Conference USA is seen as it's got to be seen as the worst Power 5 conference, probably, I'd say, from outsiders, but I don't know. I feel like in this world of going to a 13 to a, like I say, a 12, so like a 16 team playoff, do you know what? I reckon in a couple of years they're going to have a playoff contender, a proper one to make, like say, that like 14 to 16 kind of that seed.
At the risk of upsetting Junie here, would it be an offense to say that I feel like the CUSA could be better than the MAC right now?
Yeah, because there's more heavyweight teams in the CUSA. Like I
Yeah,
said, there's a lot. I think the worst teams in the MAC are better than the worst teams in the CUSA.
but the top teams in the CUSA would.
Yeah, because we've just mentioned three of them, like you say, Jacksonville State.
Mm,
Like you say, you've got Western Kentucky, you've got Liberty, outside Toledo.
got Miami of Ohio, I guess.
Yeah, but
I
the
mean, we'd have to
Michigan
do this
State,
more, but
yeah, they like Eastern Michigan, like they were disappointing last year, weren't they? Like you say,
the
very
crate train,
inconsistent, the Michigan teams.
the crate
And
train
then
let me
IU, like you
down.
say, they're kind of rebuilding. So yeah,
Bowling Green, Akron. I mean, yeah, I would argue that the
a
CUSA
lot of
does.
mid.
Yeah, like the CUSA teams did well, like with Jacksonville State emerging and Sam Houston looking competitive. I think it's made the division quite good. If you get some of those middle
Western Kentucky
teams,
beat Toledo. That will tell us what we need to know about the MAC
actually,
and
yeah,
CUSA.
that's a good call that is, and that's on Western Kentucky's home ground. So if they lose that, we might look a little stupid, but I don't know. I think Toledo have lost a lot this year, but we'll see when we get to the MAC preview. Those conversations are to come. So again, appreciate everyone who has joined us. This will be getting premiered on YouTube again. So hopefully I'll have been in the comments chatting with you all night. If you've got anything else to say, leave it in the comments below and we will get to you. But we hope very much that you have enjoyed our CUSA preview, and the rest of the group of five will be getting the same treatment in due course. So we will see you all again soon. Have a great day. One Pride.